1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Welcome, everyone. We were going to wait a little bit for Commissioner McKee, who went to Southern, but it's going to take him another 10 or so minutes to get up here, so we'll start and we'll have him catch up. So welcome. It's April 2nd. This is our regular business meeting. We are in Hillsborough at the Whitted Building tonight. And I'm going to ask everyone to please turn your phones on silent or whatever you do to make them not ring. That would be great.
It's 2 pages.
And to start with, are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Commissioner Dorson.
Yeah, I would like to suggest taking item 8F, proclamation recognizing the 110th anniversary of the NAACP, out of the consent agenda and moving it up to somewhere in item 4, where we have the other resolutions, proclamations, and announcements. I know we're going to be presenting this at the event next week, but I thought it would be worthwhile to have it read out as part of our regular proclamations in recognition of this significant event for that incredible organization.
Okay, so let's see. We have sexual assault, fair housing, Community Development Week, and then, do you want to do it after Community Development? You want to make that 4D?
Sure.
Okay. Any other changes? Okay, I have one. I'd like to take off a consent 8D and E and move that to, let's see, it was 4D, the current tax base update. If we can move that, which is now going to become 4E, because we just moved something in that place, and just bear with me, we're going to move, if we can move 8D and E to 4F and G. And the reason being is because Dwayne Brinson is here with some of his staff, and they asked if we can move that up. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
All right, I'll try to keep us on track. We'll see what happens.
We have faith in you.
Oh, all right, let's do this. There is a public charge. If you all can read that, that would be great. Basically, it tells you to respect us, and we will respect you the same. And we are going to start with our arts moment.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Nisler, and I've served on the Orange County Arts Commission now for quite a few years, and it is my pleasure this evening to welcome my fellow board member, Fred Joyner. Fred Joyner is a poet and curator and the newly named Carborough Poet Laureate. His work has appeared in Callaloo, Gargoyle, and Fledgling Rag, among other publications. Fred is a 2-time winner of the Larry Neal Award for Poetry and a 2014 Artist Fellowship winner as awarded by the D.C. Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Most recently, one of Joyner's poems won the Smithsonian's National Museum of African Art's Divine Comedy Poetry Contest.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to thank you all for this moment. It's important for us poets to feel like we're heard and to have this platform. We don't take it for granted. We're very thankful for it. I'm going to read a poem, short little poem from a collection called Dark Testament by a poet named Pauli Murray. Most of you probably know her. I did not know she was a poet, and so it was kind of a regret that I didn't know she was a poet. I knew many other things about her, but I didn't know she was a poet. And so this little collection was a blessing to me. It's called Dark Testament and Other Poems, and this is from the title poem in that collection, the first part. Freedom is a dream, haunting as amber wine, or worlds remembered out of time. Not Eden's gate, but freedom lures us down a trail of skulls, where men forever crush the dreamers, never the dream. I was an Israelite walking a sea bottom. I was a Negro slave following the North Star. I was an immigrant huddled in a ship's belly. I was a Mormon searching for a temple. I was a refugee clogging roads to nowhere. Always the dream was the same. Always the dream was freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations on your appointment as the Carrboro Poet Laureate. We are going to move on to matters on the printed, matters that are not on the printed agenda. And I've got quite a few people that would like to speak. If you would like to speak and you haven't signed up already, please do so. I'll call 2 names at a time so you can be ready to come up. You have 3 minutes to speak. Commissioner Price will time you. So the first person is Cindy Talsman, followed by Maddie Rose Crowder.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Cindy Talsman, as many of you know, and I'm a Hillsborough, Orange County taxpaying resident. The theme of this year's project for Women's March Women was Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence, per Annette Moore. Yet Orange County celebrated with a keynote speaker, Miss Linda Sasor, who attacked 2 Muslim women verbally, Miss Bridget Gabrielle and Miss Ahayan Hirsi Ali, probably not pronouncing that right, Muslim women who fight for reform within Islam and for women's rights in countries under Islamic rule, stating they don't deserve to be women, and she wishes she could take their vaginas away. Truly disgusting, and I'm ashamed that you, the board, felt that she was the appropriate speaker and that Mayor Stevens endorsed her. Are we all not in favor of unity, the state of being united or joined as a whole? It seems to be screamed from every rooftop, yet Ms. Sasor has frequently suggested that supporters of Israel are unwelcome in spaces that promote democracy and equality. How is this promoting unity? Ms. Sasor's parents immigrated to America from Palestine in the 70s for a better life for themselves and their children, to my America. Yet she can't say anything nice about my America, and this upsets me. Listening to your recorded meeting pointing out 3719, when Ms. Annette Moore, quote, couldn't tell you the commissioners, the speaker's name, but she is nationally known, end quote, not mentioning the cost to taxpayers either. Yet y'all voted to accept an unknown speaker with an unknown cost and an unknown agenda. So what is the final cost that you seem to think was well spent of my money? Yes, I was protesting against her coming here, not because of who she is, as we are all a free country with free speech so far. I protested because my tax dollars should not have footed this bill because I don't like what she promotes. She promotes hatred against police officers. She admires and raises money for Louis Farrakhan, who calls those of Jewish faith termites. Judaism, the synagogue of Satan, and praised Hitler as a great man. Are you kidding me? And you bring her here to represent me and other women in Orange County? She is not the champion of peace and nonviolence. I demand to know how much of my tax dollars were spent on her, the additional security, and the EMS that had to come to the rescue of one of the protesters supporting Ms. Sasor. I also demand that Attorney Annette Moore be fired from office immediately for lack of transparency in the speaker and the cost to us, the taxpayers. In closing, I also expect you, our Orange County Commissioners, to apologize and explain to Orange County taxpayers the reason for your support of an anti-Semitic speaker who supports murderers. Thank you for addressing my 3 demands. Ooh, right on time.
Maddie Rose Crowder, and then Seamus O'Neill.
Hello.
Good morning, good afternoon, sorry.
Hello, everybody. I'm Maddie Rose Crowder. On page 4, section 2.2, part of the Orange County Civil Rights Ordinance, it states the purpose of the ordinance. And I'm going to mention 3 of the main things. Number 1, promote the equal treatment of all individuals. Number 2, protect their personal dignity. And number 3, prevent strife, crime, and unrest. All very good purposes. So now, in regards to the event that just happened Sunday, was Orange County's Civil Rights Ordinance followed? And did the event promote these 3 things? Number 1, promote the equal treatment of all individuals. Some of our citizens received helpful words and encouragement. Hurtful words were directed at other people. Some groups were criticized for no good reason. So did this event promote the equal treatment of all individuals? I would say no. Number 2, protect the personal dignity of all individuals. Some groups of people were openly and publicly maligned and criticized. Some of our own public servants, police officers, were disrespected while they were on duty, protecting people outside the building and inside, including the speaker. And other public servants just sat and watched. So did Orange County protect the dignity of all individuals? I would say no. Prevent strife, crime, and unrest. There were a lot of people who expressed concern, disapproval, and uneasiness about the event before it took place. There were people at the event expressing their displeasure. And now after the event, there are still a lot of people feeling hurt, angry, and resentful because of what happened and because they feel their concerns were ignored. So did Orange County prevent public strife and unrest? I would say no. It seems that it caused strife and unrest to increase. So I would like to respectfully request that the Orange County Board of Commissioners and the Orange County Human Relations Committee be much more careful in the future when planning events. Make sure you vet the speakers well, and do not invite anyone in to speak who has a history of causing public strife and unrest. And he's not here, but maybe somebody can mention this to Mr. McKee. I would like to thank him especially for exercising wisdom and good judgment and not advocating for this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seamus O'Neill and then Kathy Zimmerman.
Good evening, and good cheer to the commissioners and all who are attending tonight. My name is Seamus O'Neill, and I live at 308 Charleston Lane in Chapel Hill. By trade, I'm an economist and financial analyst, and I've served both Democrats and Republicans in my career, as well as run 2 independent businesses of my own. I'm here for really 2 reasons tonight. First, to express my gratitude to the protesters on both sides on Sunday, March 31st, in exercising their right to free speech and assembly. They did not interfere with each other. It was a good day on Sunday. And also to the deputy sheriffs and other law enforcement personnel that did an excellent job in engaging with both sides. Second, I wish to express my profound disappointment with the Orange County Commissioners for permitting the Orange County Human Relations Commission to invite Linda Sarsour to speak and to spend almost $10,000 of county resources on her speech and related expenses. The Orange County Commissioners facilitated, either by act or omission, the speakership of one of the most polarizing and offensive public figures in the country today. For those who are not familiar with the brand of Linda Sarsour, she traffics in the most hateful ideas available in the public square: anti-Semitism, radical Islam, terrorism, and the demonization of women that speak out for their rights. She is smart, well-spoken, engaging, and dangerous to free people everywhere, particularly Jews and Muslim women. Having said this, Linda Sarsour does have a right for free speech, and I support her right to propagate her hateful ideas through speech, media, and print, but she has no such right to use Orange County as her vehicle. You gave her that opportunity. What occurred was made possible only through the actions of the Orange County Commissioners. As I stand here today, I cannot fathom how our county decision makers concluded that extending this invitation was a good idea. One would have thought that somewhere in the chain of approvals, authorizations, budget requests, cost estimates, invoices, checks issued, anyone would have said, whoa, maybe this is not such a good idea. However, if the Sarsour episode were in fact a well-thought-out event, then we really are in serious trouble. We have just witnessed the weaponizing of Orange County government against its own people. Does it have to be this way? My answer is no. How do we fix it? The answer lies within our nation's founding documents, or simply go with respect and logic. First, respect. We should not turn the county treasury into a piggy bank for someone's ugly propaganda. The Sarsour incident diminishes confidence that we will be treated fairly by the government on other matters. Loss of trust in our government is the most damaging result of disrespect. We start asking, whose side is the government on? What do I need to do to protect myself and my family? This makes us all more tribal. The glue that holds us together starts to dissolve. lulls between political fights instead of becoming periods of relaxation and contentment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Kathy Zimmerman and then Steve Mahaley.
Good evening. I hadn't prepared to do this, but I have a friend who really wanted to say something tonight, so I've got the email if you allow me to read it.
Can you just speak into the microphone,
Oh.
please? That would be fine.
Did you not hear me?
We got you,
Okay,
but it's better
okay.
now. Thank you.
All right. This is by Bob Randall. He says, I am a longtime citizen of Orange County. I just have 3 issues to address. The first one is our tax dollars paid around $10,000 for Linda Sarsour to speak right here last Sunday. Unless you are woefully misinformed or have turned a blind eye, you must know by now that she is not a person who promotes love and tolerance. In the spirit of truth and transparency, I would like to see a show of hands from you who supported her engagement. Do you all do this?
No, we're not going to do that.
That supported?
We're not gonna do
Just
that.
3?
No,
2?
No, we all
did.
Oh, you all did?
Well,
All but one.
I'm not going to speak for everyone. Please continue.
Okay, he also asked, and then a show of hands for those who opposed her engagement. No one?
Let's continue on.
Yep.
This is not a back and forth.
Okay. If it hasn't been done already, I think the Orange County taxpayers are owed the transcript of her speech to be posted on the Human Relations website. After all, we paid for it. Number 2, I am looking forward to seeing all taxes linked to the light rail project removed since light rail transit is dead. And number 3, no matter how many buses you put out there on the roads, it isn't going to solve Hillsboro's traffic problems, which are getting worse by the week. Hillsboro's charm has been destroyed by too much downtown traffic. Hillsboro desperately needs a practical north-south bypass to divert traffic around the town for those who have no business in downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. Steve Mahaley and then Andrea Shapiro.
Good evening. I'm Steve Mahaley, North Carolina native, local resident in this fabulous county of Orange. I too was at the event on Sunday and would like to respectfully disagree with most of what's been shared so far about that event and offer a different perspective. I think, and I think, by the way, that getting a transcript out would be a great idea, actually. So I support that, what the lady just shared there. While the costs, I'm sure, were high, I think that celebrating the end of a Women's History Month here in this county was well served by the presence of Linda Sarsour. To celebrate that history, it seems appropriate to me to pay more to get a speaker of her experience, eloquence, and consequence, as she was one of the founders of the Women's March. As a champion of dialogue, her remarks were nothing short of inspirational in highlighting the reality that while we won't always agree, and we don't, there is great progress that can be made when we work together. I would especially like to thank our Director of Human Rights and Relations, Annette Moore, for bringing Ms. Sarsour to our town. Thanks a bunch, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Andrea Shapiro, then Kate Sullivan.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Shapiro, and I live in Hillsboro. I'm here to commend the Human Relations Commission for organizing the Courageous Conversations speaker series. Courageous conversations are meant to be difficult. They're meant to challenge our assumptions, to widen our perspectives, and help us understand one another. They feed our democracy. As an organizer of the Women's March, as well as her work against Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, anti-LGBTQ, and other isms, all make Linda Sarsour a good choice for the Human Relations Commission's Courageous Conversation series. I didn't agree with everything she said in this room on Sunday. I'm certainly uneasy with comments she's made in the past. This also makes her a good choice. Anyone who missed her talk should find the video on the Human Resources Commission webpage and watch it. It may challenge some of your ideas and make you uncomfortable, but it will make you proud to live in Orange County. It will make you proud to pay your taxes. It makes me proud. And to live in Orange County as a place that makes space for this free speech necessary for a functioning democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shapiro. Kate Sullivan, then Jamie Poland. Kate has helpers.
I have human easels.
All right, there we
Okay.
go.
Can you see them? Yes. Okay, good. Orange County Commissioners, thank you for your time this evening. I'm Kate Sullivan, Development Director with Kids Zoo Children's Museum. This is Esme, this is William. I'm speaking to you this evening to update you on a couple of major milestones Kids Zoo has reached and to ask you for support. Kids Zoo, if you don't know, is the community's children's museum currently located in Chapel Hill. As many of you know, Kids Zoo has been working with the town of Chapel Hill on securing a piece of town-owned land to locate the future Kids Zoo. On March 6, 2019, the Chapel Hill Town Council voted unanimously to authorize Town Council to negotiate a development agreement with Kids Zoo for a future children's museum to be located in Southern Village. We are thrilled. Secondly, you can put it down now. This week, Kids Zoo opened its first of 2 community-based pop-up museum in Hillsborough. We transformed the gym at Hillsborough Elementary into a mini Kids Zoo to serve kids and families in Orange County during Orange County spring break. We have a sensory early learning area, cool EdTech toys, a mobile makery, an outdoor learning garden complete with our multilingual discovery packs, tons of daily activities, and as of 5 p.m. today, we have served 511 visitors, and we still have 3 days to go. So we know there is a need for these services. We've seen kids of all ages, and feedback has been nothing but positive. Why a pop-up museum, you might ask? Last year, we received a planning grant from the Keenan Charitable Trust to support our work as we plan for this new museum. Alongside conducting stakeholder convening and a public listening session, the Trust asked us to work directly with the community and make sure we are hearing from all kids and families in our region on what they need from a children's museum and what obstacles they might face visiting a children's museum in Southern Village. The pop-up has a feedback area, and we are asking these questions. However, whilst we are thrilled with the attendance numbers for this week, we know we still aren't hearing or seeing all kids and families in Orange County. We tried to secure buses to drive kids and families from Cedar Grove and Eflin to the pop-up. However, it just became too costly. Alongside this, many parents and caregivers are still at work this week, and we do not have the resources to provide a drop-off option at the pop-up. Today, I'm asking for support to help us transport kids and families to the pop-up museum and incorporate a drop-off option for working families for our next pop-up in July 2019. I'm asking for support in one of 2 ways. Fully fund our human services request for this year. Part of our ask was for STEM programming and resources that will take place at the next pop-up, or support the pop-up initiative with a $10,000 matching grant to enable us to reach all the kids and families that we want to hear from as we plan for our next Communities Children's Museum. Thank you for your consideration. Please stop by the pop-up. I'm leaving flyers for you.
Thank you. Perfect timing.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, kids. Okay, Jamie, and then Heather Redding, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm here, like many other people, to speak with regard to Linda Sarsour's visit. I was amongst a group of people who was honored to actually go to a lunch where Ms. Sarsour was invited and actually had the special honor of being able to sit next to her. And I can assure you that she was absolutely lovely, wonderful, just very down-to-earth, lovely person. I had the opportunity to ask her if if I could go to people and tell them something about you, what would you want them to know about you? And she kind of echoed this in the comments that she made when she spoke in this room, which is that her story is decidedly American. Her parents were immigrants. They came to the United States to find a better life. She has become involved in activism in order to try to create a more equitable world. And the comments that she made in this room definitely echoed that as well. And as some other people have said, inviting someone who has some controversy surrounding her certainly means that people are having a conversation now that wasn't previously being had in the community. And I thank all of you for making that possible. And in reference to something that a prior speaker mentioned, it's personally offensive to me that a young woman who has autism spectrum disorder was in need of medical attention, and that it was implied by a prior commenter that there was something wrong with the county serving that individual because she was here as a protester. And I just really felt that I needed to say that that's really shameful. But once again, thank you all for inviting Linda, and thank you for broadening the conversation.
Thank you. Heather Redding and then LaTondra Strong.
Good evening. I would like to thank Orange County, especially Annette Moore, her staff, and the Human Relations Commission for inviting Linda Saussure to speak in Hillsborough this past weekend. Not only did this invitation and event embody the spirit of a courageous conversation, but it generated an enriching community dialogue amongst people of varying faiths, backgrounds, and beliefs. She is no less American than most of us here in this room, and she represents the breadth and the beauty of what it means to be American. While I was not inside the event to hear Linda Saussure speak, I did get to witness the power and strength of community when it unites around the shared values of inclusion, diversity, and anti-racism. In fact, the screaming that came from the other side of the street from where I was standing, the heckling and propaganda and hate, that kind of noise has no power when Muslims, Jews, Christians, and secular community members are all in the same space together, holding hands, singing in unison, and joined by common visions of peace and progress. Sadly, I'm not surprised by the anger expressed by those who can't bear to see a powerful Muslim woman rock the status quo and do it not so quietly, and especially coming from those who actually support racist flags and Confederate organizations. Their criticism is fairly selective. Anyways, I hope you continue to invite equally powerful and inspiring public figures, and that the selection process is inclusive of community stakeholders, especially those whose voices are overlooked or silenced. We need to have conversations that spark not just debate, but an interest in learning beyond the headlines, as well as cross-cultural opportunities for dialogue. And while no one is perfect, we need speakers whose goals are to advance unity rather than oppress and sustain systems of racism and hate. White supremacy, white nationalism, and those who feel comfortable expressing racism are the greatest threats right now, and we see much of it here in Orange County today. Speaking of hate, I would also like to gently remind the board that the May 15th deadline to bring the Confederate sign on Highway 70 into compliance with Section 6.12 of the UDO is approaching. I urge you to take appropriate preparatory measures in advance of the deadline to ensure that the new sign regulations are enforced. Thank you again for your support on these matters.
Thank you. LaTondra Strong and then Ashley Campbell.
Good evening. I'm LaTondra Strong, and like others, I too attended the events this weekend, and I was inspired. I was inspired and I was moved by somebody different, saying something different, teaching me to think beyond the limited scope of my own life and to think about how other people live in this world. It's strange to me that people who criticize Linda Saussure as a speaker here are not people who reach across and try to learn about other people's lives. We don't have to live in a homogeneous environment where everybody does everything the same. That's not America. America is a place where we have a choice. We have the option to be who we want to be and to live fully in that image of ourselves and our own identities. As a person of color in this community, I can tell you that there are many places in Orange County that I don't feel safe going. That when I go, my peers will say to me, "You're going to go there?" You know, and we have to get to a place where that's not the Orange County that we are. We have to get to a place where if you object to something, you come in the space and hear what's said and then talk further. See, Linda came here. She was here for 45 minutes to an hour talking, but this is our place, and it's up to us to make the change. So if Linda Sarsour is a person that you don't want to see here, why don't you get with other community members who are not like you, talk, have the courageous conversations that this event was meant to speak about, was meant to encourage, and learn a little bit why people feel like she is a good person to come here. That's what we should be doing, but that's not what we do. Instead, we use our power to quell the voices of people who don't sound like us. We got to do something different. And I applaud you guys for doing something different. You're going to take a lot of hits as we push forward into the future where people feel more comfortable in this town, because she inspired me and she inspired others to use our voice to make a Orange County where everyone thrives and everyone feels safe. Not just when you come on this street on a Friday night, you can count the number of people of color on your hand. It's almost like we still have white-only signs and color-only signs. And you can look at my life, and you can see there's very few places that I go where there isn't a variety of people around me. Can everybody here say that? I don't think so. So I encourage you to keep bringing people that make us talk more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strong. Ashley Campbell, Sarah Cross.
All right, good evening.
Evening.
Mrs. Strong mentioned the power to quell people who don't sound like us, and I think that pretty well summarizes the difficulties I have living as somebody who's not progressive in Orange County. I'm surrounded by people with power who want to silence people who have a more right-leaning ideological perspective. So I'm just here to speak my truth about that experience. Because I think that the example that I'm about to relate is representative of the treatment from the county toward people who object to its leftist policies. So I'd like to relate exchange I had with Commissioner Mercopoulos on Facebook, because I wanted to talk to him about the Sarsour talk. And I thought it would be nice to have a civil conversation. So I asked him first if he had office hours, which he said he did not. I know some elected officials do. So I wanted to meet at a time it was convenient for him, but he said that he didn't. And so I asked if he ever met with constituents outside of meetings, if there's a chance to exchange thoughts outside of official meetings. And he said, sure, I meet with constituents all the time. So I asked for spare a few minutes, just a few minutes, but like before a meeting, like tonight or something like that, to talk about the Sarsour event. And he said, no, just send me an email. I'm not really interested in talking to you, basically because I'm not deserving of a conversation because I've said snarky things about him in the past. Snarky things like, Commissioner Mercopoulos, I think it's wrong that you don't want to allow the public to attend Go Triangle board meetings. Or if you want to understand more what I think about freedom, then read works by John Locke or read the Federalist Papers, things like that. And then he went on to explain that he just had no respect for me whatsoever. So I did email him, and I never got a response. Instead, I got the FAQ page that Todd McGee sent to everybody about the event, but, I mean, not to be trite, but I think that if you don't see a problem with this, then you're part of the problem. I mean, what passes for a courageous conversation in Orange County today is Linda Sarsour talking about where I'm standing right now and calling people like me who are protesting her appearance, because I was also here for the talk, just to be clear, a white supremacist, and tossing around slurs like that. And there's no chance for any kind of dialogue. Things like this don't initiate dialogue. I don't know why people feel like they do. It just divides people further. I mean, this is obvious from what I'm saying right now. And then, I'm sorry, quickly, I've got to make this point. The last minute rules about no filming and searches by staff were extremely problematic. I'm not sure it's even legal to have searches done by people who are not law enforcement.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Yes, and there is a quorum of commissioners here. There's a quorum of human relations commissions. This should have been announced as in a public meeting. People should have been allowed to record it. And the only response I've gotten from the Human Relations Commission so far is a snarky Facebook post. So I'm looking forward to my public records request being fulfilled. Thank you.
Sarah Cross and Miriam Thompson.
Good evening, commissioners and Orange County neighbors. I'm here to thank you, the county, for bringing Linda Sarsour to speak. It was a joy to hear her. She's a powerful organizer and a leader for justice, and it was an honor. I'm here also because I was so angry that when she arrived, we had to pass through a gauntlet of white supremacy, Islamophobia, and white nationalists to get to our seats. I will not stay silent in the face of hatred of Muslims. I believe it's our responsibility as citizens and residents, and yours as elected officials, to address the hatred that we saw on Sunday. And let me be clear, if we think critically and educate ourselves well, as I'm sure you as government officials do, we know that accusing Sister Linda of hatred and anti-Semitism is misplaced. She is yet another woman, another person of color, another religious minority, another immigrant to be blamed and scapegoated for hatred that lives in our government and in our corporate leaders. It is our president and his advisors who use anti-Semitic language. It is his administration who passes Islamophobic Muslim ban. It is him and his administration that cage immigrants at the border and disrespect women's bodies. Accusing Linda of anti-Semitism, of being a bigot, is a tactic to distract us from the bigoted signs and words we had to walk past to get here on Sunday, and more importantly, the bigotry and hatred of those in power. They think if they attack her, her potency will be drained. If they package her as a terrorist, that we won't hear the truth that she shares. Sadly, what I see are my neighbors unable to separate fact from fiction online, hoodwinked into believing the misinformation and propaganda of the far right. As for anti-Semitism, if you are reading and talking with a diverse group of Jewish colleagues and friends, commissioners, I know that you will know this is a sea change moment in the Jewish community, when Jewish people, myself among them, recognize the terrible misery in occupied Palestine. We understand that an ethnic nation state protects neither Jewish Israelis nor Palestinians. Our safety will never come from locking ourselves away behind walls, but by making sure everyone, Muslims, trans people, immigrants, Jews, women, are safe. This is the work that Linda does. As a Jewish woman, I know that I'm not safe if Linda, a Muslim woman, is not safe, which is why I'm here tonight saying again, I will not be silent in the face of Islamophobia, and I expect my community to do the same. I support Linda, and I expect you to too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cross. Miriam Thompson and Samuel Perkerton.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Let me just fix the mic. I know you are often challenged by political forces that seek to disrupt your mission, but an example of your sureness of purpose is the support you provide to the Human Rights and Relations Department and the Human Relations Commission. Their recent and heralded courageous conversation to celebrate Women's History Month, featuring national leader and trailblazer Linda Sarsour, Palestinian Muslim American, best represents our diverse community who engage each other with civility and communal respect and regard, overcoming often hostile protest voices who sought to disrupt and derail the event with hostile, hateful, and unverified charges. Instead, the speaker was greeted with standing ovations and overwhelming support in emails. And I urge the audience, as the previous speaker mentioned, to look at the Human Relations Commission website, where they will be summarizing her speech or excerpting good parts of her speech. And you should also go on her website, Linda Sarsour's website. And then you will put to rest some of the really awful and harmful charges leveled against her. I want to read you some of the lessons she shared in her presentation. We must listen to each other and understand the lens through which we experience our life's work and engagement. We must listen to each other and respect each other's humanity. We can learn from each other and expand our consciousness and conscience, not by attacking those with whom we disagree, but by embracing each other as neighbors, determined to build a just, peaceful, and civil community for our children and grandchildren. Again, I want to thank you for your support and the presence of a good number of you at the event, our elected commissioners. It was a privilege to be in the audience. It was a privilege, by the way, to see how people behaved and really tried to listen to Linda. Some of her comments I've just summarized. Listen to her and embrace her message. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Samuel Perkerton, and then I have Lorna Morith. Lorna, you have written down that you want to talk about transportation. Is that something that is on the printed agenda? Okay. All right, so is Samuel here first? No? Okay, Lorna, come on up.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lorena Morlock. I am a resident of Hillsborough, and I have to deal with transportation that you provide because I have no vehicle. I've had many problems. I did reach out to one of your commissioners, which I will not embarrass by naming, and was blown off. Never heard from him again. And I hope I live long enough to vote. I don't know. I know you work with the transportation, approving budgets, so forth. I would like to know how I reach out to all of you, since I have now already gone to the state and the federal government, because I could get no answers from Orange Public Transit or your commissioner. And I thank you if you will let me know. I put my email on here. Email me, or I'll be emailing you. But there are great problems. I thank you.
Thank you. We'll have someone get in touch with you. Riley Ruskey, is there something on the printed agenda or something not?
A couple other things.
Okay, come on up. And then Mark Xavier, do you want to speak on something on the printed agenda or oh, you do? What would you like to speak on?
Agenda. He said agenda.
Is there something on the printed agenda?
He wanted to speak on the
Okay, so
agenda.
you'll wait until that item comes up, correct? Okay, Mr. Ruskey, please.
Good evening. My name is Riley Ruskey. I'm a United States citizen and a combat veteran. I find it abhorrent that my tax dollars were spent to bring a terrorism sympathizer to speak in Orange County. It's just an abhorrent situation. But the main reason I came here to speak tonight is because I believe we now have the death of the fiasco called light rail. And in light of that, you're going to take a vote on that later tonight, I believe, on funding. I would like to ask that you consider rescinding the 5-cent or half-cent sales tax increase that was enacted in 2012 to fund things like the rapid transit. You're already collecting other taxes for transit usage. You have all kinds of little white buses running around the county that are empty most of the time, spewing taxpayer dollars out their exhaust pipes. And I'd like to see you get that problem fixed and cut the wasteful spending in transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruski. Mark Xavier, would you like to come up and tell us what you would like to speak about?
Yes, I would like to say thank you for inviting Ms. Linda Sarsour. I was here on Sunday, and she spoke, and she stood behind her work. And I would also, as many members have stated, that to actually post unedited the whole speech online so that people in the county can actually read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Xavier. Would anyone else like to speak about something that is not on the printed agenda? Okay, so we are going to move on. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We are now going to move to 3 announcements, petitions, and comments by board members, and we'll start with Commissioner Dorson.
All right, thank you. A couple of, petitions and questions. So this is a petition earlier this week, Democrats in the legislature introduced a series of bills regarding LGBTQ rights, including a non-discrimination provision that would add sexual orientation to non-discrimination law. That's something that was on our legislative goals that we adopted. So I'd like to petition us to do a resolution or a letter, whatever the chair and vice chair think is appropriate, in support of those bills. I think there are 3 of them that were introduced as a package. So that's one. On a related matter, and I saw this in the minutes, at our last work session, we had a presentation from the Adult Care Committee, and they mentioned that there was legislation had been introduced to raise the personal care allowance that residents are allowed to get. That I believe there's already been a bill introduced, and I think we should issue I think we said at that work session that we would issue a resolution in support of that legislation. So I think we ought to do that. I also think, the community lost a great leader this week. Fred Battle passed away. He was a fearless community leader and advocate for social justice. I think it would be important for us to make some kind of recognition for Fred and all the contributions he's made to this community. And then the last thing this is just a comment. I was at the program on Sunday, and the presentation, I want to commend the Human Relations Commission and Annette Moore for putting that program together. It was powerful, it was inspiring, it was exactly the kind of presentation, conversation that we need to be having in this community. As many of the speakers said, I thought the program was inspiring. I was inspired. I think even the progressive side of the room was challenged. I think Linda challenged us all to be better and to do better. And I just want to commend the county for putting that on and for creating that opportunity for so many residents. I think it was an important moment for the community, and I think those are exactly the kind of reasons we have a Human Relations Commission. So I laud them and I laud the program. Thank you, Annette.
Commissioner McKee.
Yes, several weeks ago I petitioned that the staff engage with Chapel Hill and to get some information brought back to us on Chapel Hill Transit's looming shortfalls in the future. And I'd like to follow up on that with a petition to now have staff continue engaging with Chapel Hill, but also with Carborough, Hillsborough, and if they so choose, Mebane, on moving forward to develop plans on how to move forward on addressing Orange County transit needs in light of the recent developments with LRT, and also to start developing plans on how to address needed changes in the interlocal agreement, both services and governance.
Thank you. Commissioner Price?
Yeah, I have several. First of all, I also want to thank the Human Relations Commission. Debbie Stroman is here, as well as Annette Moore, for having the courage to put on that program on Sunday. Thank you. In addition, last week I attended the North Carolina Council on Women and Youth Involvement's Women's History Month program or celebration in Raleigh, and it included Jackie Shelton Green, who's one of our Orange County natives, as well as Vaishnavi Sirapurupu. Anyway, so she was honored, and she is even though she's not from Orange County, she is a freshman at UNC, and she's studying to be a gynecologist, having recognized the situation of women in India. And I just wanted to make note of two people that were honored at that program in Raleigh. Sort of in that same vein, talking about women, today's Equal Pay Day for women, saying that women have caught up to men in 2018 now in terms of pay. And along that line, several years ago, some of you will remember that Alice Gordon and I tried to reinstate some sort of women's commission or commission for women, and I would like to look at that again and ask staff and at Moore to come back to us with an idea that she may have for how to pursue that and women's issues in Orange County. Also, this is National Public Health Week. The theme for this year is creating the healthiest nation for science, for action, for health. And I just want to commend our health department staff for their work in Orange County. And that's it.
Thank you.
Hey, you know, I heard that it's only Equal Pay Day for white women, for women of color. It's
Yes, I
another
was gonna
several
say
months
it's
before
worse,
we get to.
yeah,
that's
it's
right.
worse for women of color. I can attest to that.
And we still don't have equal pay as white women either. Commissioner Markopoulos.
Thanks. First, I want to thank the Human Relations Commission as well for a great program, aptly named A Challenging Conversation. A lot of thoughtful dialogue occurred afterwards. It was, started by the great speaker, a very strong woman who's really been misinterpreted and a lot of propaganda put out about her, but she battles on. So we had the Solid Waste Advisory Group meeting last week, affectionately known as SWAG, and a couple of key things were a very interesting presentation by a guy named Michael Everhart, who I think is a UNC graduate student, who has begun taking care of trees that are old and dead or coming down, and saving the wood and facilitating transforming them into benches and artwork and useful objects that will allow the trees to live on and keep the trees from being just tossed out. And looks like he was very committed. Looks like it may expand, so keep your eyes out for some of that work. The interlocal agreement approval was celebrated by everyone getting a copy of it. It was pretty festive. And a couple things that are coming up. They're looking for a secure Northern Orange emergency storm debris management plot of land. You know, I don't know if you all have ever seen the piles after a hurricane, but we need a good bit of land for that to get ready for the next storm. And compost is going to be looked at very closely as a major component of our waste stream in the near future. And to follow up on Commissioner McKee's request, I would like to maybe expand a little bit on that. And this could even be a work session topic if everybody thinks it would be useful. But I think we need an overview as we go into the next phase of transit planning. we need an overview of how decisions are made on transportation in Orange County. Like, we know that Chapel Hill Transit actually is a bigger bus system than Go Triangle. They make a lot of their own decisions. We have Orange Public Transit. We make a lot of our own decisions. We need to understand the landscape, who makes the decisions, how these agencies interact, how the MPOs interact. I know that Burlington Graham MPO has something to say about the bus that runs from Burlington out to Chapel Hill. So if we could get a general report on that and maybe even have a discussion on the implications of those relationships. And lastly, I'd follow up on Commissioner Dorson's recognition of a great life lived in Fred Battle. I first met Fred in the 80s. We worked on the Jesse Jackson campaign together and worked with him ever since on various issues. And he was just a great leader for civil rights and just always an easygoing, pleasant, but very principled man, and a great member of our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Green.
I, too, want to extend sympathies to the family and close friends of Fred Battle. I got to know him in my early days on the town council when he had just left the town, but he remained a strong advocate of the public works employees and was going to bat for them at every turn. And I can still hear him say, the struggle continues, and indeed it does. I, too, want to thank Annette for the presentation and the guests we had on Sunday. I wonder about the status of the video. Is the whole video going to be online? Can you tell us that, Annette?
So what we contracted for were pieces of the video, and what I am going to go back to ask is if we could put the whole video up.
I think that would be important, particularly considering the controversy and the fact that not everybody was in the room. I agree with Commissioner Dorson's comments. It was very inspiring, and it was, I just think if people could see what she said, there might be a chance that there would be some different opinions. And the flip side of that is if it's not the whole video, then it's going to seem like it was selective and that, there were things that were hidden. Yeah.
We'll definitely work on it.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, April is Poetry Month, and I just want to put a quick word of thanks again to prior commissioners for setting up the arts moment, which I find inspiring as well. You all got my report from the Triangle J lobbying. That was that. And just another small thing, and that is I've noticed some bright new rural buffer signs that have gone up in the county, and former Commissioner Jacobs asked me a while back to check up on that because that was something he wanted to make sure was done. And Ms. Manager, can I presume that all of those signs that should go up have gone up or are going up?
They are going up. I don't know that they're all up, but it is from the petition that Commissioner Jacobs requested a couple of years ago.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bedford.
April's a busy month. It's also Autism Awareness Month, and today is National Autism Awareness Day. And as a mother of a 31-year-old with autism, I wanted to share that with everyone. And I also want to thank our IT department. They've been working extra hours after our service breakdown, and they're sort of behind the scenes, and it's not until you're without your computer that you realize how much you really depend upon it. I have a petition, and I've provided everyone a copy, and it basically says it's regarding an email from Kevin Leonard, Executive Director of the NCACC, dated March 29th of 19, to provide input on recommended regions for tailored plans with Medicaid transformation. And I'd like to petition us to do that. An earlier map of regions has been developed for those with substance abuse and mental health needs who will have their physical and mental health services integrated into prepaid health plans as part of the first phase of Medicaid transformation to a managed care structure. The participating contracts were announced February 4th, and the first launch set will be in November as it's a phased roll-in.
People with intellectual developmental disabilities, those with more challenging behavioral health needs, and some other special populations will be served by what are called tailored plans under the Medicaid transformation. The regions are being drawn and will be in place for 4 years. The NCACC, which is the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, has been asked to provide input for the map. Orange County should consider stating a preference to be in the same region as Durham and Wake counties. And for example, CASA operates in Durham, Wake, and Orange counties to provide housing for people with mental illness. Their operations and client access would be more efficient if Orange County were grouped with Durham and Wake counties. Generally, Orange County residents would have greater access to more varied services along with public transportation if our county were grouped with Durham and Wake. And other examples would include community college access and people being closer to their families. Thank you.
Where are we grouped now, or where are we proposed
We're
to be
grouped with Charlotte, and it's just sort of a gerrymandered grouping, but especially with Western Carolina and Southwest Carolina. So, for example, when my daughter was being considered for a group home placement, Jefferson, it's 4 hours away. It's just unreasonable for families.
We'll take that petition to agenda review. Thank you. I just have a couple of quick things. At the SWAG, the gentleman was talking about the trees, called it tree cycling, which was kind of interesting. And he's encouraging people to not cut their trees down in small chunks, but cut them down in larger, like 10 feet or so, right? 12 feet, so they can actually get some nice planks out of that. So that was really exciting. And I want to congratulate Commissioner Markopoulos is now the chair of the SWAG. So that was, as per our rules, one of our county commissioners has to be the chair. I also want to thank the HRC. I see Debbie Stroman is there, and I encouraged her to stay home and have a glass of wine and watch us on TV, but she didn't take that advice. So thank you for the program on Sunday. It was a good program, and the protesters have a right to protest, just like we all have a right to sit in here and watch the program. So that worked out well. I want to thank the sheriff who's sitting in the back, and also Rodney Brown and Jeff Ray. They were all here on Sunday. So thank you for your time on Sunday. We really appreciate it. And I also want to thank Rabbi Jen Fellman. She was not able to come. She was invited, and she was going to attend, but there was a death in the community, and she had to be at the funeral. Deb Stroman and Rabbi Jen and myself met, and we had a very good conversation before the event. I think that was helpful for all of us to have that conversation, so thank you for that. The internet is spotty in here, I know, so please bear with us. We're trying to get up as quickly as we can, and we should be there soon. I also went to the women's event in Raleigh, and I had the honor of driving Miss V out to the event. And she told me that I can call her V because her name has way too many consonants in it for me to put in my mouth. And she's just a lovely young lady. She's just starting her freshman year, and she's already created a number of apps for women to, have better control of who they are in their bodies. She is just so inspiring. She's doing a triple major, not a double major. So we'll follow her along and see how she progresses through UNC. I also want to say something about Fred Battle. I worked with him on the OWASA board. And one of the things that Fred was always so concerned about was wasted water and leaky pipes and people not understanding that their toilets were leaking and getting these huge OWASA bills and not understanding why their bills were so high. So he was instrumental in making us, go back and go into people's homes and finding out where the leaks were coming from. Especially in the north side area in Pine Knolls. He was very, very concerned about people not understanding wastewater. So I think that the proclamation would be really nice. Thank you for that, Commissioner Dorson. Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I would say in addition to a proclamation, if we could send something to the family. And Fred Battle had a presence throughout Orange County. And I just have to say that the work that he did and the legacy that he's left means that we have a lot of work to do to continue his work. I'd like to do that as well, too.
Okay, thank you. At our desks, we have a PowerPoint for 4E. We also have one for 6C. And as you notice, we've got our CIP book, which you are not expected to read between now and the end of the meeting, but we will take a deep dive into it at the work session. We're just going to get an overview of that tonight. So lots of questions you'll have. You can just start writing them all up over in the book, and we can go on that. So let's move over to 4, and we're going to start with a sexual assault awareness proclamation. The board will consider voting to approve a proclamation recognizing April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Orange County and authorize the chair to sign it. Is Rachel Valentine here? Rachel, welcome. Come on up. Would you like to read the proclamation for us? Oh, take your time. It's okay. We don't want that baby to drop on you. Not here.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be here and to read this proclamation. Whereas the Orange County Rape Crisis Center assisted over 700 survivors of sexual violence, their loved ones, and community professionals during 2018. And whereas the Orange County Rape Crisis Center works with the county's 2 school systems and other groups to provide students with age-appropriate information about violence prevention, reaching over 17,500 youth and adults each year. Whereas the coordination of the Orange County Sexual Assault Response Team is bringing together members of law enforcement, the medical community, the legal system, and other community advocates to improve services for survivors of sexual assault who come forward. And whereas 1 in 5 American women have been sexually assaulted at some point in their lives, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And whereas in the United States, rape is the most costly crime to its survivors, totaling $127 billion a year, considering factors such as medical cost, lost earning, pain and suffering, and lost quality of life, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. And whereas in the United States, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of sexual or physical violence committed by an intimate partner, according to the CDC. Whereas there are more than 18,000 sex offenders registered as living in North Carolina, according to the NCSBI. And whereas victim blaming continues to be an enormous problem in instances of rape and sexual assault. And whereas the Orange County Rape Crisis Center, a nonprofit agency that has served this community since 1974, is working to stop sexual violence and its impact through support, education, and advocacy. Do I read this last part?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Orange County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and encourage all residents to speak out against sexual violence and to support their local community's efforts to prevent and respond to these appalling crimes. This, the 2nd day of April, 2019.
Thank you. I need a motion to accept the proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Dorson and Price. Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you coming. Okay, 4B is the Fair Housing Month proclamation. And Annette Moore, will you be doing this for us?
Yes. The month of April is National Fair Housing Month. April 2019 will mark the 51st anniversary of the enactment of the Federal Fair Housing Act and the 25th anniversary of the Orange County Civil Rights Act. These laws grant every person a right to lives where they choose, free from discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, or gender.
Thank you.
Religion, familial status, or disability. The Orange County Ordinance established in 1987 adds additional protections from discrimination based on age and veteran status. During this month, Fair Housing Month, the Human Relations Commission, along with other community organizations, will co-sponsor a variety of events. In addition to the emergency preparedness power of attorney clinics that we held last year, we'll hold one again this year. We'll also co-host community book read, where Evicted by Matthew Desmond will be read, and that will be, one event will be tomorrow, April 3rd, from 6 to 7:30, and then another event will be here on April 24th from 6 to 7:30. So the other event, tomorrow's event, is at Southern. And then on Sunday, we'll have the annual community dinner from 1 to 3. We'd also like to acknowledge our partners that are working with us in the Community Book Read Empowerment, Habitat for Humanity, the Marion G. Cheek Jackson Center, the Orange County Affordable Housing Coalition, the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, the Orange County Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and the Orange County Housing Authority. Last year, we have statistics for last year for fair housing, national statistics for 2017. HUD and FAPS closed 7,985 cases nationally and received almost $9 million in monetary relief for complaints. At the end of 2017, there were a total of 84 FAPS, 49 that serve a locality like us, and 35 that provide statewide services. We're considered a small agency. FAPS closed in 2017, that's Fair Housing Assistance Program agencies. 6,329 of the 7,985 cases. 6,878 complaints were filed with FAPS. The greatest numbers of complaints filed were based on disability, and that holds true in Orange County too. 59.47% of the cases, complaints filed for fair housing were disability cases, which is twice as many as the next highest area, which is race. Disability has continued to be the most common complaint in the last 5 years. We have had, last year in 2017, we conciliated 7 cases and we no cause 4 cases of the 11 cases that we had. And so the comment to us from HUD was that we closed more cases than some of the larger agencies. They were surprised. But so that's my presentation on the.
Would you like to read the proclamation?
If I have to. Can Debbie come up and read the
That would
proclamation?
be fine. I told her she should have stayed home. She didn't believe me.
Thanks.
Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you. Whereas April 11th, 2019 marks the 51st anniversary of Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, formerly known as the Fair Housing Act, and the 36th anniversary of the North Carolina Fair Housing Act, prohibiting discrimination in housing on the basis of race, color, sex, religion, national origin, disability, and familial status. And whereas the Orange County Board of Commissioners enacted the Orange County Civil Rights Ordinance on June 6, 1994, which affords to the residents of Orange County the protections guaranteed by the Fair Housing Act, and additionally encompasses the protected classes of veteran status and age. And whereas Orange County and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, as well as concerned residents and the housing industry, are working to make fair housing opportunities possible for everyone by encouraging others to abide by the letter and the spirit of fair housing laws. And whereas the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development annually declares the month of April as National Fair Housing Month. And whereas, despite the protections afforded by the Orange County Civil Rights Ordinance and the Fair Housing Act, illegal housing discrimination still occurs in our nation and within our county. And whereas, by supporting and promoting fair housing and equal opportunity, we are contributing to the strength of our county, state, and nation. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Orange County, North Carolina, do proclaim April 2019 as Fair Housing Month and commend this observance observance to all Orange County residents.
Thank you. Motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Green and Dorson, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, commissioners, for that discussion on gender. I appreciate the lawyers on the board going and getting our heads wrapped around that. And you too, Ms. Moore, thank you so much. Okay, 4C is Community Development Week proclamation, and this is going to be Ms. Hampton.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Always a pleasure to come before you, and we are here this evening to ask your approval to proclaim the week of April 22nd through the 26th as National Community Development Week in Orange County. This week is designated really to observe the accomplishments of the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Program and the HOME Program, really as the Home Investment Partnership Program. Both programs are designated by HUD. There are HUD programs. The CDBG program has been going on since 1975. In this county, the town of Chapel Hill is an entitlement, and they receive CDBG funds. The county serves as the lead for the consortium, and that consortium receives home funds. So we are asking, the theme this year is CDBG and Home Make Communities Better Places to Live and Work. In observance of this, if you approve the proclamation, we have several activities planned. One activity will be on April 16th, right before, but it will be at Cedar Grove Community Center. We're doing something for our seniors. We are working with EMS and the Fire Marshal's office, and it will be entitled Remembering When. It is a fire and fall prevention. We really want our seniors to be safe in their homes. Another thing we're doing is planning an exhibit at each of the libraries with several books on that. The Chapel Hill Library has already agreed. We are still under negotiation with the Carborough and the main library here. We will be highlighting stories from the field that we will work with the communications department and put up from our various partners, Habitat, CASA, Empowerment, Community Empowerment Fund. We're asking them for their stories and to highlight the impact of the programs and the funding that the county has given for community development. So there is no financial impact associated with this. We have a number of activities that will be going on in addition to those that I've named.
Thank you. And would you like to read the proclamation?
I can. Whereas the week of April 22nd through the 26th, 2019, has been designated as National Community Development Week to recognize and celebrate the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Home Investment Partnerships Program. And whereas the theme for the 2019 National Community Development Week is CDBG and Home Make Communities Better Places to Live and Work. And whereas for the past 44 years, the CDBG program has provided annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide safe, decent, and affordable housing and a suitable living environment and affordable housing opportunities to low and moderate income persons and families. And whereas for the past 27 years, the HOME program has provided funding to local communities to create and preserve safe, decent, and affordable housing for low-income persons and families. And whereas last year, the Orange County Home Consortium, consisting of Orange County and the towns of Carborough, Chapel Hill, and Hillsborough, received a total of $401,340 in home funds that were used for second mortgage assistance, acquisition of affordable rental housing, and tenant-based rental assistance. And whereas Every dollar of home grant funding leverages more than $4 in other funding to help further expand the critically needed supply of affordable housing. And now, therefore, be it, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Orange County, North Carolina, do proclaim April 22nd through the 26th of 2019 as National Community Development Week and commend this observance to all Orange County residents.
Thank you. And approval of the proclamation or motion?
Second.
Price and McKee, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Okay, and now we're going to move 8F up to 4D. And Commissioner Dorson, how about if we pass the proclamation down to you, and you can read that for us?
I'd be honored. Proclamation recognizing the 110th anniversary of the NAACP. Whereas the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, was founded in 1909, and whereas the biracial endeavor to advance justice for African Americans was formed by a group including W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary White Ovington, Ida B. Wells Barnett, and Henry Moskowitz, and whereas the charter of the NAACP states its mission as follows: to promote equality of rights and to eradicate caste or race prejudice among the citizens of the United States, to advance the interests of colored citizens, to secure for them impartial suffrage, and to increase their opportunities for securing justice in the courts, education for the children, employment according to their ability, and complete equality before the law. And whereas during the early decades of the NAACP, an anti-lynching campaign was central to its agenda, and whereas the NAACP played a pivotal role in the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s, and whereas one of the organization's key victories was the U.S. Supreme Court's 1954 decision in Brown versus Board of Education that outlawed segregation in public schools, and whereas the mission of the NAACP has evolved today to secure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights in order to eliminate race-based discrimination and ensure the health and well-being of all persons, and whereas the NAACP has grown to more than 500,000 members worldwide, and whereas historically marginalized and oppressed people remain encouraged and continue the march for the full measure of social justice and equality that they believe they shall achieve one day, now therefore the Orange County Board of Commissioners hereby recognizes the 110th anniversary of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and urges all residents to support and engage in the ongoing struggle to ensure justice and equality for all of humanity, locally, nationally, and globally. This is 2nd day of April, 2019.
And would you like to move that
I
proclamation?
will move the proclamation.
Okay, so Dorson and Green, all those in favor say aye.
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 Against? And if you can give that to Commissioner Price. Commissioner Price is going to deliver it for us on Sunday at 3 p.m. If you haven't heard, the NAACP will be celebrating the 110th anniversary at the Southern Human Services Building. That's in Chapel Hill. That's Sunday at 3 p.m. Everybody is welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for pulling that from the consent
No.
agenda.
Okay, so now 4D is now 4E, and this is an update on our current tax base and the 2021 countywide revaluation. The board will receive an update on the current state of taxable property in Orange County and receive an overview of the 2021 revaluation process. Mr. Brinson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dwayne Brinson, Orange County Tax Administrator. Many years ago, the board requested that I provide an annual update on the state of the tax base and the upcoming revaluation and the immediately preceding revaluation. That's what I hope to accomplish with this presentation. It's going to be very brief. The last revaluation was in 2017. All appeals have been resolved from that revaluation. Much to our surprise, we received about 3.5% of appeals with the 2017 reval. We were expecting 8 to 10%. That's kind of the normal. So we were pleasantly surprised to get 3.5%. Currently working on appeals for the 2019 tax year. Hope to have those resolved in the coming month or two. And we have begun work on the 2021 reval. We do a reval once every 4 years in Orange County. Next takes effect January 1, 2021. With this revaluation, we are in the first group of counties in North Carolina that has to go through all of the new North Carolina Department of Revenue standards. A few months ago, we started the process, and we did a 1% random sample of all improved properties in Orange County. That was due back in September. The Department of Revenue has three sets of goals that they want to see counties meet. And you can see there, based on the numbers, the square footage data, the objective data, and the subjective data, the standards were all exceeded in Orange County. So our data is very, very good going into this revaluation. And that's an effort we took in 2017, was to make sure that we had great data on the books. And the community really helped with that. We asked for community help, and we got that, and that's why these numbers are so impressive. We also had to do a reappraisal plan. That was due January 1st, just a few months ago. We had to project a budget, we had to project staffing levels, outsourcing needs, and we had to go ahead and develop a timeline for the 2021 reval as part of that plan. Our timeline is here. We've already begun work on the 2021 reval, as I mentioned a while ago. Some of the larger items on this that we talked about in the 17 reval, one being the schedule of values. That's a 52-day process. We bring the schedule of values to the board, and we let it sit for public inspection. We have public comments on it, and then the board considers approving those schedules. And those schedules, that's a tool set. I think Commissioner Dorson, last time he used that expression, it being a tool set for how we get to the values. It's not going to define the values for us. It's a set of tools for how we get there. So that'll be coming to the board in about 18 months. We need to get that out and to the board. The notices of value, we hope to get those out between December 2020 and February 2021. Again, it takes effect January 1st, 2021. And then appeals, they begin January 2021 and run probably through June 2021. And the 2021 reval, it's going to be much like the 2017 reval. You know, we kind of coined the 17 reval being a community revaluation. We educated taxpayers on how to present a successful appeal. If we have wrong data, if we have a wrong value, we want to get it right. And that's why we see this collaborative effort with the community needed. This will be the same way. Where we are as of 2018. Every quarter, the Department of Revenue asks us for a random sample of sales, and we compute stats from those sales. At the end of the year, which is what these stats get to, we do an annual study. The number of qualified market sales in this analysis that we reported to Department of Revenue included 421 sales. And here are some stats that tell us where we are. The sales ratio, which tells us the percentage assessed value is of market value, of what properties are selling for. The median sales ratio, based on this random sample of 2018 sales, the median sales ratio was 91%, meaning that tax values, the 2017 tax values, compared to 2018 sales, were about 9% less. The mean ratio, or the average ratio, is about 93. The coefficient of dispersion, you see COD there, that tells us how tightly compact the sales are. So we can be 10% one way or the other, 5% one way or the other, but is the data spread out, or is it more tightly compacted? We want to see it more tightly compacted. The goal for a COD after a revaluation is to be less than 10. We're 2 years out from a revaluation, and we're about 13. So that is a really good number for us to see. It means the schedules are still working, but market values are rising, which is it's an inverse relationship. Market values are rising, driving that sales ratio down. And you can see by the range, we don't capture everything, and we don't understand some sales. The range of those ratios is about 160%. Again, that's taking into account the extremes. When you look at the middle, we're right there.
Can I ask you a quick question on that slide?
Sure.
Is that all right, Ms. Chair?
Absolutely.
So the 421 sales, that's like the random sample?
Yes.
And so how do you decide how many to pick? Is that some percentage of the total number of sales for the year, or what is that based on?
We have to submit the last book and page to the Department of Revenue each year. And then they give us a sample of sales to analyze. And if a sale is not qualified, meaning if it's a related party sale, if it's a corporation sale, we skip that and go on to the next market sale. But the Department of Revenue gives us the sales to review for that time period.
So they say, here's 421, we want you to analyze.
Right, based on the last book and page number that we have for that year. So they have a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right, kind of comical illustration of what we try to be. We don't want to be too busy to not hear feedback. I mentioned the 17 reval. Not only do we welcome feedback from the community, from the board, we solicit that. We know that the more input we can get, the better the end product probably will be. And that's kind of what this illustration gets to. You're not going to get very far on these square tires. Somebody's trying to give you round tires. That's kind of where we're going. So the 2021 reval community initiatives, we have a program called Public Comper. And it is we don't want barriers for people appealing values. If the value is wrong, we want to get it right. You might remember the 17 reval, we provided the entire sales bank. We provided an Excel sheet telling people how to evaluate their value. Now we kind of have that automated with Public Comper. It's a way for the community to go out there and find comparable sales for their specific property. They can define the parameters, find the sales, analyze it. It more or less does an appraisal for them. We don't want our community to go out and have to spend hundreds of dollars on an appraisal to appeal the value. We want to get it right the first time, but if we miss it, we don't want it to be a barrier for them. We don't want it to be costly. That's kind of where this Public Comper goes. The second initiative there is an online property record card and change request. So all the data for the properties, it'll be online. It'll be electronic. It's all online. The neat thing here is that if they notice, when they go online and they find their property and they notice something is wrong, they don't have 2,000 square feet, they have 1,500 square feet, they can submit a change request directly to us online. There's no paper involved. It's available 24/7. We worked with the vendor to really get that set up in an efficient way, providing notifications to the taxpayer when we want to provide comments back to the taxpayer on what we found and what we're doing. That goes to them now. They get confirmation when they submit this request, and they get our notes back in return. That's something we worked to change, and we think that was good. Okay, back this past January, this is in line with the online property record card that I just mentioned, where they can submit change requests. This past January, we attempted to simplify the tax listing process, and I'm not so sure that was accomplished. Yeah. So what we're going to do this year, and I think this is an incredibly simple way to do this, the only people that really need a listing form, this big, long, legal listing form, front and back document that we send out every year, very complicated. The only people we're going to send those to, and a lot of counties do this, are people that own personal property. Business personal, individual personal, those are the ones that need it. They have to sign every year, and they have to return it every year. Some counties do not send any notice to real property owners. They send nothing. I don't think that's fair. What we're going to do is we've developed this postcard, and it's going to be sent to all real property owners that don't own personal property. All they have is a house. This is going to go to that population. And you can see it gives the important tax dates, the important reminders. It outlines the exemption programs where they can go online and pre-qualify themselves for an exemption and assistance program. And it says, if you do have this personal property, this is what you would need to list. And then at the very bottom, it says, Per state law, 10% penalty applies when a listing is required to be returned and is not by January 31st. And throughout this postcard, it tells you if you're required to return a listing form. Now, the efficient thing with this, and how I'm tying it into the property record card, is if a real property owner wants to notify us that they have added a bathroom or added a porch, whatever the change may be, instead of having to go through this long legal listing form document, they can do this online now. They can go to the property record card, and they can submit that change request right online to us. We've had a lot of feedback from the community on making this electronic, and this is our way of doing it. I think sending this postcard will be much less confusing to the community.
One comment.
Yep, sure.
Can you do something about the color of that?
Yeah, this
Or
is
better contrast?
This is in draft. That was just what's available in Word. We'll work on that.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you.
And we'll.
I mean, I know you want something bright, but sometimes some of these, it actually looks orange or more like a rust color on my computer. But, yeah, for old
Kind of
eyes.
like your shirt. That could be a good color.
Yeah,
too.
Carolina blue.
Yeah.
And we'll also, I just wanted to give this to the board because I know you all got a lot of feedback from the community on the listing process. I just wanted to show you the direction that we're going to hopefully simplify this. But this is going to look better. The calendar, it's going to be all the same color. But just wanted to show you the direction that we're going now. Absolutely.
Additional questions? Okay. So we are just being asked to receive this tonight, so there's no vote on this. So thank you, Dwayne. And if you could just stay there. We are now going to move 8D and E will now become F and G. So if we can go to 8D and E on the consent agenda, please. And this is to approve the resolution reappointing, do I have to say your whole name? Timothy Dwayne Brinson as Orange County Tax Administrator to a 4-year term effective July 1st, 2019. And there is a resolution that accompanies that will, the board has to approve of Mr. Brinson for the next 4 years. Okay. Questions, comments?
I'll move resolution.
Second.
Resolution moved by Green, seconded by Markopoulos. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Okay, and then 8E, we also appoint the 5 deputy tax collectors, and I believe they are with you tonight. Would you like to introduce them?
You guys want to come up?
Okay. And I'm going to try and get everyone's names right, okay? The purpose of this is to reappoint Valerie Curry.
Hi.
Hi, Valerie. Bernice Gwynn. Bernice. Bobby Underwood as deputy tax collectors for 4-year terms, effective July 1st, 2019. And to appoint for the first time Rebecca Lee.
Hi.
Hi, Rebecca. Tanya Smith. Sorry about that. As deputy collectors for the 4-year term effective July 1st, 2019.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Price,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bedford. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations, and
Yeah.
thank you for all the work that you have done on the last round. And I also very much appreciate you taking into account some of the feedback we got from folks about the bumpy parts of it and that it's being worked out for this round. And so,
Yes.
so that's fantastic. Good work, all. Congratulations.
And welcome to the new folks, right?
That's right, and
Yeah.
welcome.
Okay. So this is now going to become H. So it was E, and now we are H. Presentation of the manager's recommended FY 2019-2024 Capital Investment Plan, CIP. The board will receive the manager's recommendations, 2019-24 Capital Investment Plan. And this is Bonnie and Travis. I guess you're going to tag team here? or-
Yeah, I will just introduce Travis and Paul Lawton took the lead on the capital investment plan this year while I was interviewing with, or meeting with outside agencies. Travis will give a high-level view of the capital investment plan this evening. You have at your places the capital investment plan for future reading. We will have a work session dedicated solely to the plan next week, a week from today on April 9th. And I'm going to turn it over to Travis, and he will go through the most important parts of this. And then next week, we'll talk about the really more important parts, item by item.
Thank you. Welcome.
So, thank you. Travis Meehan, Deputy County Manager. So throughout the capital investment plan, we'll keep sort of going back to a couple of major themes that you'll notice we've increased investments on through this process. So one is the sort of sustainability and resilience to climate change. I think the board recognizes over the past year we've had some struggles with county facilities being having to be remediated due to some deferred maintenance, but also some sort of extreme weather events. So you'll see that there are investments being proposed in the capital investment plan to build more resiliency into county facilities and also create a sustainability bank for smaller scale projects that come up during the year. The other theme will be a commitment to school facilities. As we did last year through the operating budget, we're going to reserve $3 million in the capital investment plan for deferred maintenance projects. So we're pleased we can do that. And the other major investment in schools will be $20 million as part of the Orange County Schools bond projects and bond program. Most of that is to add the wing to Cedar Ridge High School. In economic development, we're going to be proposing investments in the Piedmont Food and Processing Facility, or Center, formerly known as PFAP. Also continuing our broadband expansion and adding money to the Hillsborough EDD water and sewer project. And then lastly, the last major theme will be public safety. And as we have in the past, we'll be recommending the full implementation of the sheriff body camera deployment, some supplemental funding for the 2 EMS stations that were in last year's capital budget, radios, and vehicles also for first responders. So the total recommended plan is $47.4 million. You'll see how it breaks down in terms of county capital. The proprietary funds are things like solid waste, the non-sort of general fund items, solid waste and sportsplex, and then school capital. It is a overall decrease of $19 million from last year's plan. You'll remember in last year's amended plan, we had some large county projects, including the Northern County Campus and the Southern Branch Library. And then we did amend the capital budget on a couple occasions to provide $3.5 million for various remediation projects. That will all culminate into a debt service increase of just under $1 million, or a tax rate equivalent of about 63.63 cents.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On that slide, you've got, so the total's $47.4 million, then there's a decrease of $19.3 million.
Yes.
So that's already taken out of the 47.4?
Yeah, so last year's, the amended 18-19 CIP was, $67 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these projects that are on the decrease are they're being, some of them are pushed forward and some of them are.
So under the bullets under the decrease are just the big projects that were in the 18-19 amended plan that made it bigger, made it $19 million bigger than this current recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Travis, I have a question on that same area, the decrease, the Southern Branch Library. So Carver is building the building, right? So what are we buying with $5.6 million?
Yeah, so that's the county library space that we will own a condominium interest in that facility.
I had one question. Going back to page 2, on the I know it's a small amount, the Sustainability Bank, but in our packet, when it was described, it says that a Technologies Initiative project has not been used for several years and currently has a balance of $200,000. So we haven't used it, and we're going to put more into it?
No.
Have a plan to...
So there's a board initiatives category in the information technologies budget account that had been funded at $50,000 every year. That had not been used for 4 years, and so what we're recommending is taking that $50,000 out of the IT board initiatives and putting it into the sustainability bank.
And then it will equal $250,000?
No,
When
so
you
that
put the other 50?
$200,000 will stay over in the information technology project for any information technology board initiatives that may come up in the coming fiscal year. And then rather than putting an additional $50,000 there, we're taking that money and putting it over into the sustainability bank. Does that make sense? So year over year, you'll see how based on the nature of the capital investment plan, expenditures can sort of change drastically. So in 1819, 80% of the capital investment plan was dedicated to county capital, and now in 1920, 73% is dedicated to school-related projects. If we take a look at the entire 5 years of the first 5 years of the plan, here you'll see the recommended CIP expenditures, and I'll just flag for you a couple of the policy considerations that we'll be bringing to you. The first is this public safety radio system. So we've had a radio system group that has been working on developing proposals for a replacement radio system for first responders in the county. Working with a consultant, that group has now come back with 4 different options, the least expensive of which is $38 million. And so that is in year 2 of the proposed plan. The rest of the county capital is in line with the amount that's been allocated in previous years of $10 to $15 million. The second issue will be we will be coming up on the final issue of the school bond that was approved in 2016. So that final installment will be $14.5 million out in fiscal year 22. And in addition to that, there's also a Durham Tech Community College building expansion that we would want to try to tie to any sort of subsequent school bonds. So those are just sort of some of the future policy questions that will sort of roll up in the capital investment plan as we get closer and closer to them. If we look at the financing sources, so this is sort of consistent with the expenditures with one exception. So even though the radio system costs $38 million, we're proposing a cost share with the public safety agencies in the county to offset the county's cost by about $24.5 million. So this is an interlocal agreement that we'd have to be working on over the next year to get that in place. A radio system, as you might guess, you can't prevent a free rider on a radio system. So either all of the partners in or the project doesn't move forward under that model. The county, of course, could pick up the entire cost of it, but we've mentioned to public safety agencies throughout the development of the radio plan that there is going to be a cost share proposal involved in moving this project forward, and so that's what's represented in the recommended CIP.
And who would be the partners on that?
so law enforcement, fire districts, anybody who carries a radio.
But some of that comes out of our budget anyway, right? The sheriff's department?
Yeah, so our share is 13.6 million of the 38. So that's the sheriff's department and EMS, as well as potentially animal services. And the formula that was used to create those shares, just by the by, is the number of subscriber radios in each agency. So the more radios you have, the more you'd pay. The 10-year sort of debt service schedule associated with these investments, you'll see because of the timing of the projects coming online. So Chapel Hill High School will start paying principal in 21-22. Northern County Campus will also be coming. The debt service payments will be starting in earnest in 21-22. And then if we would choose to do the radio system, those debt service payments would also start in the same year. So right now, what we're looking at, if we sort of leave everything the way it is, there'd be about a $10 million increase between 2020 and 2020, or fiscal 21 and fiscal 22. Now, given how projects sort of progress over time, there's a good chance that that'll get spread out a little bit, but if everything were to occur as it currently stands in the recommended CIP, that's the debt service impact that the county would experience. So as you know, we've done we propose doing incremental tax increases over time to pay for the debt service that was largely associated with the school bond, and if we would do that, the last tax increase would occur in 21-22, and then you can see some capacity open up starting in 22-23, where and that's where we would be looking for some policy guidance on whether to pursue another school bond or and the Durham Tech building expansion. We look at our debt service to revenue policy. As you know, we've tried to maintain debt service to general fund revenue policy of about 15%. When we last visited this policy, so the green line here is our policy target. The blue line here is the amended 18-19 CIP, so that would have included the increase to the Northern County campus. And then the top line is where we are currently with the 19-20 recommended CIP. Again, the increase, so we top out at the same increase in fiscal 21-22, but then because the radio system is there, we don't quite decrease as quickly as we would have without that project. So just for your information and enjoyment, we will be revisiting project by project discussion of the capital investment plan on April 9th. We'll further consider these projects as we go through the budget work sessions, and then both the operating and the capital budget will be considered and approved by the board on June 18th. Happy to take any questions.
Questions for Travis? Commissioner Markopoulos?
I have a question about a specific project. If there's another general question about the whole process, maybe.
Please.
Well, are we going to ask questions about specific projects tonight? Is that?
I don't know that, unless it's going to be like we're not going to go into detail.
So it would be useful if I could just say it, and then you can say whether it's useful or not. So on the Piedmont food processing facility improvements, talking about getting a generator, $125,000 emergency generator, it'd be useful for the discussions, I think, for two reasons: to understand what's the output of the generator, how much a similar size solar array and battery would cost, and would it be feasible? if it was cost-effective, it might be worth considering doing that. And no matter whether it's cost-effective or not, it would be a useful exercise for us to understand the comparative costs of solar and battery to what we're currently doing.
I'll bring that back at the work session.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that's a very good question and observation, and it is something that we hope comes back in the work session as well, because when we leave the work session, then we'll put all these suggestions and questions together and come back with information for you. So those are the types of things, as you look at things, alternatives to what what I'm recommending, we'll bring back more information.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any additional high-level comments, questions, or suggestions? Okay, so next week we have a work session on this. You have a good week to dive into it, and if you have any questions, certainly you can call Travis or Bonnie along the way.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We have no public hearings tonight, so we are going to move to the regular agenda. And we're going to move to 6A, Eflin Buckhorn Mebane Access Management Plan Adoption. The board will consider adopting the 2019 Eflin Buckhorn Mebane Access Management Plan, EBMAMP. Welcome, Craig.
Good evening, Craig Benedict. This item was before the board on March 7th. The access management plan in the Eflin Buckhorn area goes all the way from the I-85-70 connector all the way over to the Mebane border. It's a large area. It handles those 4 primary areas, everything from widening roads in places to having intersections placed appropriately so DOT could install traffic lights when warrants are there, having frontage roads to decrease the amount of connections to the roads for efficiency and for traffic safety, and then some connectivity options. So a lot of the elements of the access management plan have been applied appropriately through that large zone. We worked with the Economic Development Commission back in January and got their letter of support, but there was one element that came up at the last meeting and really over the last few years that was incorporated in our plan. It's known as a traffic separation study, a TSS. A traffic separation study is where the Department of Transportation and the North Carolina Railroad tries to find intersections or rail crossings to either close or to put a bridge over them to separate the traffic of the rail to the traffic of vehicles. There was one that was brought forward in 2016 with a public hearing in 2017 that suggested at Buckhorn Road that there should be a rail bridge or a bridge on Buckhorn Road that will go over the rail. In its present alignment of Buckhorn Road, it is too close to the interstate to be able to create the elevation and then back down before you get to 70. So there was a suggestion to veer Buckhorn Road to an easterly trend to create a little more distance before you get to the tracks, and there was 3 options. Those 3 options went near Mount Moriah Church. Orange County had recommended that the least obtrusive option, where it would definitely miss the church and the cemeteries, but after the input that we had at the last meeting, roughly 5 or 6 days later, myself and my staff, Nish Trivedi, Tom Altieri, went to the church, Mount Moriah, on Tuesday night and listened, provided a brief introduction of what is going on in the area and received a good hour plus of input. That input ended up in the letter that is within your package, and they suggest that there should not be a traffic separation on Buckhorn Road and the rail, that it should stay in its present alignment and just cross the tracks and be widened, depending on, traffic in the future. I agree with that assessment by the community. We are not the total purveyors of changes to bridges over rails, so we have to monitor what the Department of Transportation does, what the rail wants to do at various crossings throughout the county. We do have in our, as funding comes forward for projects like this, sometimes it's funded at the state, level, or the regional level, or at the local level, so we have to stay attuned to what those various processes are. Bottom line, for the access management plan, in this area where Buckhorn Road is, wondering why this, let's go down to another page. Presently, the plan shows this traffic separation study to have this purple line. Here's the church, here's Buckhorn Road, here's Hunter's Chapel over here. What we're suggesting is no purple line on the map. Of course, Buckhorn Road stays, and this is where the rail crossing would be. So to go back, this is the way the access management plan was presented in March, and now we're suggesting to completely delete that from our access management plan. DOT has hired consultants to look at the feasibility of these crossings. We do not have to be in agreement with them as they pursue that in the future. So the recommendation tonight from staff is to delete the traffic separation study element of our access management plan. The letter that both churches, sent forward to the commissioners agree that it should be removed from our overall access management plan. That is our recommendation. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Craig? Would anyone from the public like to speak on this? I don't have anyone signed up.
We had a good meeting, good participation. We will also take their letter and forward it to the Department of Transportation and the North Carolina Rail, and the consultants that they hire to do any further work in this area. So we have to stay on top of it.
Commissioner Price?
I just want to thank you for taking the time to do that, to do the community meeting with your staff, Tom and Nish. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the recommendation from the manager is, I'm sorry.
Could you just quickly summarize what happens next again? I think you told us last time, but.
Okay, the overall access management plan is a document that goes beyond the deletion of this one. But this plan becomes part of our unified development ordinance. So when development comes forward in the area, we can refer back to this plan and say, if there's a development, let's say near the Buckhorn Flea Market, they should bring their development out to an intersection that DOT has kind of pre-approved. So it is a tool that we will use in the development review of any projects that come forward, come forward as a development application to Orange County.
And you said, I think you said when your presentation that DOT is still looking at these rail crossings, and so it's possible that they could come back at some point in the future and say, we want to do this or we want to do this, and then we'd have to revisit this in light of...
That's correct. When the traffic separation study, it wasn't focused on here, it was focused on about 5 other crossings back towards Mebane. There's been some work done with private crossings from here over, almost to Durham. In the process for getting funding for these type of projects, there has to be feasibility plans, and they have to take a look at the cultural aspects and all those. So I would expect that before a project is ever submitted to do something like this, it has to become part of those spot processes that you heard about. Every 2 years we work on a new version. Spot 6.0 is coming up. And so before anything gets submitted into one of those new processes, the DOT would hire a consultant to try to perfect something like that. So we have to stay on top of this and provide community input, provide commission input. And you will get lists from my staff on prioritizations of what projects we want to submit for Spot 6.0. So it's likely that if it says Buckhorn Road with a traffic separation study, we'll say, no, we would like Buckhorn Road widened if that happens, but without the traffic separation study when it comes back to the next phase of the spot process.
So my question is, the manager's recommending that the board adopt the 2019 Eflin Buckhorn Mebane Access Management Plan Attachment 4. Which one of these is Attachment 4? I see Attachment 3, Attachment 2. I don't see anything labeled Attachment 4.
Yeah, Attachment 4 is the larger document that was at the public hearing. So you could say Attachment 4 with Attachment 3, which is the after situation, which shows it without that road.
So it's Attachment 4 is the large document.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go with Attachment 3 aftermath.
Correct.
Okay, does everyone get that? Okay, additional questions or comments? If not, we could do a motion on this.
I'll move what was Attachment 4, the plan with Attachment 3 aftermap included.
Second.
Moved by Dorson, second by Commissioner Price. Any additional discussion on this? I think we talked about enough. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, thank you, Craig. And thank you all for coming out and spending some time with us this evening. We really appreciate it. I know it was a little bit long till we got there, but we appreciate you hanging with us.
I'd like to
But it
thank you
worked.
also.
Democracy in action.
Democracy in action, there we go.
Community empowerment.
Okay. As these folks are leaving, let's queue up for 6B. This is approval to acquire property at 509 Central Avenue in Hillsborough, and this would be an acquisition to purchase a price not to be negotiated, but not to exceed $171,000 plus other associated closing costs, including the cost of any ad valorem tax due on the property following closing for the year, in order to maintain the said property for affordable housing purposes. And Cheryl, are you going to bring this? And we have some people that want to speak on this as well.
Good evening again. Thank you. As you have in your abstract, you have photos of the unit, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. We are bringing this request for to exercise the county's first right of refusal and to acquire the property as a means to maintain units in the affordable housing portfolio. The prior Board of County Commissioners created the 99-year affordability period. This was one of the homeowners that was assisted through the home program. The original loan came about as that, and you see that information in your abstract. This person now, that owner is selling to move to a larger unit. She had her mother with her. Her mother has since passed, but she wants to moving to a new unit. And we did not want to lose this unit. A proposed initial buyer was an unqualified buyer based on the home definition of an unqualified buyer, meaning they were not low and moderate income. And so we thought this was a good unit to purchase and acquire and maintain affordability and keep it in the portfolio. So we are seeking that. You have information before you. The property is right here in Hillsborough on Central Avenue. You see it's 1,077 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, ranch-style home. You see the total acreage there, and it was built in 1994. An appraisal was done, and you have that, what it was appraised for as property values here on the west side of town, if I have that correct,
Commissioner Ferguson? It's the west side, right?
Well, it depends on your era. It's either considered to be the southernmost bit of Fairview, West Hillsborough, we call it Hillsborough Heights.
Okay, all right. So it is in Hillsborough Heights. And do you see the GIS information is in your packet on it? So are there any questions?
Questions from Ms. Hampton? Okay, let's let folks speak, and then we can
Yes.
ask additional questions we have. We have Dolores Bailey up first and Kathleen Ferguson. And y'all have 3 minutes. You know the routine.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Welcome.
Glad to be here, thanks. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Dolores Bailey, and I am Executive Director of Empowerment Incorporated, a community development corporation that has benefited greatly from the county's participation in the CDBG and home funding program. Tonight, we've come to thank you for your support of our affordable housing program. Empowerment has grown our housing program since 1998. Our program is a combination of home ownership and affordable rental properties. Our housing program is a HUD-certified program, which means we are available to provide counseling throughout the state of North Carolina. Empowerment's team has counseled over 2,000 people towards pre-purchase, away from foreclosure, and towards affordable rentals. During our bi-monthly community outreach meetings, we spend many hours educating residents around holding on to their homes, managing their household debts and budgets, and understanding the importance of knowing your fair housing rights. As you know, safe, affordable rental in Orange County is very difficult to find. The action you're considering tonight came about because of the fail-safe methods in place to protect affordable housing and its inventory. If you pass the motion tonight, a home that was purchased several years ago as an affordable home will continue to be in the affordable rental stock, where Empowerment Supply is at capacity, which you'll hear about a little later. Again, thank you, Ms. Hampton, for sharing your knowledge with us, and Commissioners for understanding the need for more rental inventory in Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Kathleen Ferguson, then LaTanya Davis.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm a resident of this neighborhood, Kathleen Ferguson, and I live at 517, and irrespective of the numbers, it's actually two doors down. This home is important for affordable housing. This neighborhood is a traditional working-class neighborhood. 2 years ago, the average home price was $81,000. As you see, you were seeing $171,000. Whereas homes used to take 6 to 9 months, days for sale, they're now going within 24 hours. We have 3 other homes on this street, which is not very long, which are going to shift from affordable rental of $500 to $600 a month to market rate. That is coming in 6 months. This home is an important part of this neighborhood for diversity, for affordability. I beg you, please, to support this investment. It is very important for the community. It's important for our citizens. And personally, I don't want to lose my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. LaTanya Davis, and then Valencia Thompson. Coming together? Okay.
Yes, we're both with Empowerment. Thank you
Welcome.
for listening to us tonight. My name is LaTanya Davis. I'm the former property manager for Empowerment, and now I'm the operations manager. And my team and I work closely and hard together to at Empowerment for the affordable housing. EI's property management started about 1998, and we currently own about 50 units. And of those 50 units, we're at 100% occupancy rate. Our vacancy rate is low, which means we have a long wait list. We have about 30 people on our wait list now. That consists of 17 people waiting for a 1-bedroom, 7 people waiting for a 2-bedroom, and 6 people waiting for a 3-bedroom. The length of time on our wait list is about 1 year, and we update this list every 6 months. So the need is great. We do a lot of great things at Empowerment, and would love to have this house in our inventory.
Hi,
My name is Valencia Thompson.
Could you speak into the mic?
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
My name is Valencia Thompson. I am now the property manager at Empowerment. Just to piggyback on what Ms. Davis has said, we have viewed the property. It falls in line with our inventory of single-family homes. It would not be a stretch for us to manage the property because it's right around the corner from another property that we own here in Hillsborough, and we'd love the opportunity to serve one more family here in Orange County and get somebody off our list.
Great, thank you. Okay, folks. Questions or comments? Commissioner Dorson.
Yeah, I have just a mathematical question. So in reading the abstract, it lays out this formula of what would happen if this property was sold privately, right? The 171,000, there's a payoff of 105,000 and change, and then there's the net sales proceeds would be 65,000, and then Orange County would get half of that under the existing formula, so 32,000.
Yes.
So if we approve this and buy the house, the 171, does the county still get that $32,000 back? So are we actually putting out less than the 171,000?
We are putting out less. We have been negotiating, trying to come to a less price because we do have to rehabilitate the house. There's about $14,000. We have entered into preliminary conversations, and the owner has agreed to sell it for $157,000. So we would not recapture because we would keep it affordable, and we are exercising our right, so she would not have to give up half of the net proceeds, but it is at a reduced rate.
And that's because it needs this additional maintenance?
Yes.
Primarily?
About $14,000.
Thanks.
Additional questions? Commissioner Price?
I would just like to say that how important it is in this neighborhood, and I'm, on the other side of Churton going the other way, but along that beltway, whether it's Fairview or West Hillsborough, we need to keep these homes. And I have seen, where these, this whole area could get gentrified in a nanosecond if we don't do something now. So I think this is really an important move.
So I remember sitting in a community home trust meeting a couple of years back, and we were talking about Hillsborough, and there was a comment, and it wasn't from Kathleen, it was from someone else, that Hillsborough doesn't have an affordable housing problem. Well, it seems like it's caught up to you now, and we need to be...
Oh, we have it, yeah.
We need to be really concerned about what is happening in Hillsborough. We can't just be mindful of all the other towns, so... With that said...
May I ask one question?
Yes,
please,
Commissioner McKee, sure.
Yes. What was the protocol to recapture half of, the normal protocol is to recapture half of the, I guess you'd say, the net profit on any sale of a house. Am I correct on that when it's sold?
Well, it is if that property is being purchased by a non-qualified buyer, i.e., they're not low income.
But we are, is the current, are we planning to sell it back to a low-income person? I mean, I'm sure we are, because we're going to keep it affordable.
We're keeping it affordable. It will become affordable rental. We are cleaning it. The home loan will be paid. The first mortgage will be paid. And so we will then transition it to affordable rental.
Okay, I just want to set a precedent on that recapture issue.
Yes, it would either be affordable for home ownership or it can be affordable for rental. But
Okay.
recapture, we would lose the unit if it is bought by an unqualified buyer.
But I just want to be clear on that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments?
It's great, really great
Okay,
outcome.
yeah. Ms. Attorney, could we do all three at the same time, if that would be okay?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the recommendations. I'm not feeling like reading them all. If everyone could just take a look at them. They are to adopt the resolution to purchase the house, and then to allow the manager consult with the attorney, and then authorize the manager and after the consulting to purchase the, to sign the documents and purchase the property.
So move.
Okay, so it's moved by Green, second by Commissioner Price. All those in favor? Oh, any discussion? I keep forgetting the discussion afterwards. I'm like, discussion, we're good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay. Congratulations.
So much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. All right, folks, we're moving to consideration, which is C, consideration to discontinue the Durham Orange Light Rail Project. The board will consider voting to discontinue the Durham Orange Light Rail Project as recommended by the Go Triangle Board of Trustees. This action will satisfy the requirements of the interlocal cost-sharing agreement for the Durham Orange Light Rail Transit Project by formally discontinuing the project and beginning a process to reallocate funds that have been allocated to the light rail project through an amended Orange County Transit Plan. And Travis is going to help us with this. We have a PowerPoint, and we will be walked through what our next steps are.
Yes.
Welcome again.
Thank you. So, as you know, we are currently in a cost-share agreement with Durham County and Go Triangle on how the costs of the light rail project were to be split. Late last month, the Go Triangle Board of Trustees did vote to recommend to the cost-share partners, the two counties, to discontinue the project. And, John Talmadge was here weeks ago to describe the challenges that the project faced, and those ultimately led to that recommendation. So just in terms of the letter of the cost-share agreement and how our action tonight will satisfy those requirements, in the event of a significant cost overrun or unmitigated funding shortfall, a couple things happen. One, that the agreement requires the representatives of the counties to get together and discuss the next steps within 15 business days. So I think Chair Rich sent an email sometime late last week about a meeting that was yesterday afternoon. So that satisfied the 15-day requirement. During that meeting, the parties also came to a consensus that having each respective Board of Commissioners vote to discontinue the project would also fulfill the terms of the cost-sharing agreement. So at one point, I think I had communicated to the board that we would need to authorize our representatives to take this action. The attorneys and the parties have all agreed to satisfy that requirement by a full board vote. So we will take that action tonight. Durham County will take their action on April 8th, and that will start a 20-day clock where the staff working group is required to meet to begin the process to develop a new transit plan and reallocate the funding that had been allocated to the light rail project. The staff working group, just for those of you who may not remember, it is staff representatives from Orange County Go Triangle and the MPO. On regional projects, we typically meet jointly with the Durham staff working group. So for regional projects, Durham's also included. And then the municipal partners, so Chapel Hill Transit and OCPT, for example, or not OCPT, are involved in the plan development. And then as we sort of look toward the immediate future, there will be a sort of a discontinuation plan. So on Friday, Gary Donaldson and I will be meeting with Go Triangle staff to talk about how the project and the expenditures are now wound down now that the project is discontinued, and a timeline for that. That'll be presented to the Board of Trustees for Go Triangle on the 24th. And then once all of those things have been accomplished, we will eventually come to the board to terminate the cost share agreement for the light rail project. As I said, once the project is finalized, meaning the last bills paid on the project expense. So tonight, we're asking the board to follow the Board of Trustees' recommendation to discontinue the Durham Orange Light Rail project, and also to authorize staff to participate in the staff working group to amend the transit plan and reallocate those funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Travis? I just want to let you know we have one person that would like to speak on this from the public. Okay, so Linda Brown, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Linda Brown. I live in Chapel Hill. As Orange County goes forward with its future transportation plans, I'd like to humbly request that the Orange County Board of Commissioners build in protections for the taxpayers of Orange County into any future agreements. That you improve Orange County Transit by using some of the Orange County tax dollars to fund new routes and to fund the purchase of electric buses and the green infrastructure such as solar collectors to support the creation of a carbon-free transportation system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Okay, questions for Travis? Commissioner McKee.
Yes. Mr. Marin, did I understand correctly that you all, or Go Triangle will be providing us with shutdown costs fairly soon? I mean, I know that just because there's a vote to discontinue does not mean the expenses stop. I mean, we've got payroll, we've got operating costs, we've got contracts that have to be either terminated or renegotiated. So when can we expect to know when that information would be coming to us? Is what they...
So I'll find out on Friday, and I can send the board an email with the timeline for that. But the process, they've already started the process of discontinuing those consulting contracts.
Right. I'll defer to other members if there's other questions.
I can add a little bit to that issue. John Talmadge said the other day the consultants are being wound down quickly, and he highlighted the importance of dealing with this, since the process is moving forward quickly to wind the cost down. And the situation now is if, it's not going to happen, but if we were to keep spending as if the project was moving forward, borrowing would have to begin in August. And that's not, obviously not acceptable, not responsible. So it's going to happen pretty quickly, and information will be available.
Commissioner McKee?
Yeah, in fact, that was going to be one of my next questions, because I was aware that reserves would run out in August, that we would have to start borrowing money in August to continue at the rate that we were spending. So I appreciate that comment. And also, I believe in response to a question I had before a couple of meetings ago, there are no liquidated damages on these, or no termination damages on these contracts, as I understand it. Am I correct in that?
That's my understanding
Yes,
as well.
that was my understanding from Mr. Talmadge's answer. Going to the plan and the interlocal agreement, because a great deal of well, the plan, but a great deal of interlocal agreement deals with the light rail portion of this entire project. How extensively will this be renegotiated? And I guess I'm asking not only for operational, but for, as our speaker mentioned, to gain greater input from this board and from Orange County's towns and communities as to what we would like to see locally as to our priorities, while still maintaining some regional outreach and working toward that also. And
Yeah, so the interlocal cost share agreement only applied to the light rail project. So once all of the bills are paid on that project, we will at some point vote to terminate that agreement. If there is a subsequent regional project that comes through the amendments to the Durham and Orange transit plans, there may be another cost share agreement on a different project. So what we have to do now is to start that process of developing really from scratch what those cost share, or what the transit plans look like I said, which may or may not include another regional project. Either way, there will be an extensive public participation process to all of that, so appreciate, everybody who wants to will be asked to participate in that process as those transit plans are developed.
Commissioner Dorson?
So just to follow up on that, so, so in the interim, say between now and when those new plans are developed, the current transit plan without any light rail spending stays in place? So whatever we had for buses that's already in there, stays, that sort of status quo is maintained until we go through this process and a new transit plan is adopted?
That's correct.
Commissioner Price?
I'm going to stumble in trying to get this question out, but bear with me. And I've been getting questions about this. So, and we heard some of it earlier today. So the monies that were being allocated for the light rail going forward were based on taxes. Will there be can you provide an explanation as to why that tax rate will stay in place? I'm assuming that it will stay.
Oh, the transit sales tax?
Yes.
So I don't believe there's an automatic sunset on that.
Right. So that's why I'm thinking that as you're working through this, an explanation as to why or why not it remains in place.
So the funds that are generated by that transit tax will be reallocated in an amended transit plan, but I can certainly provide the board with what an option, what process would need to occur if you wanted to terminate the Article 43 sales tax.
Well, essentially because people will say, well, okay, well, a certain amount of that money was going to the light rail. It's not going to the light rail now, so why do my taxes why do I still have to pay this tax?
Understood.
So, if, whether you do it as a sheet of FAQs or whatever, just so that we have a response.
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Markopoulos, yeah?
I have a post-mortem statement. Should I wait until it's totally flatlined here?
Well, let's finish with questions first, and then we can go to postmortem. Commissioner McKee?
Yeah. Personally, I think we'd have to have another referendum to terminate the tax, because we had to have a referendum to put it in place. But as we go forward, there's no limitation on, as I see, that as to what types of services we could put in. We could put in BRT to Durham. We could put BRT in addition to Martin Luther King. We could put additional to Hillsborough or to Pittsboro or any other out 54 to increase services. Any number of combinations, plus quite a bit of transportation services out into our rural parts of the county. In fact, I think that House Bill 148 that authorized all this specifically spoke to this. Plan must provide for equitable use of net proceeds, focusing on identified needs of local public transportation systems in the district, human service transportation systems in the district, and expansion of public transportation systems to underserved areas, which would allow us to focus on a lot of the folks in Orange County, urban and rural, that are underserved right now. So I'm excited about what we can do. I mean, Is that your understanding also of the way that this can go?
We're
Way to
only
turn a comment into a
Yeah.
question.
We're only limited by our
I realize I was
imagination
commenting.
and the amount of available funds.
Yeah.
Commissioner Markopoulos, do you have a comment that's going to turn into a question as well?
It may not even turn into a question.
Okay. So we're at our comment phase.
No, so I just want, on that topic, though, you know, the challenge has not gone away. We still have, 7,000 people moving into the region every year. We have future unmet needs. So this transit tax money is going to be utilized to good end for who knows exactly what, but we can imagine some, some version of bus rapid transit, more bike and pedestrian pathways, even, bus stations that we couldn't afford till now. I was driving down the road the other day and saw this old lady standing out in some gravel by 54, just a totally unpleasant place to...
Or decent bus shelters.
Yeah, bus shelters, and, so all that to say that we are all of a sudden faced with the lack of a complete regional transit plan, and we're going to have to fill in the gaps, and we're going to need money to pay for it. So I think it will be used. Is that a question?
That was a comment, but okay. We're in comments. Additional comments?
Well, I'm going to do my postmortem.
You could do your postmortem. I just want to make a few points, though. Pittsboro is Chatham, and so currently there is the Chatham bus service is a nonprofit. And as Chatham grows, they're going to have to rethink what they're doing. Our Orange Chatham Work Group has started this discussion. Go Triangle does not include Chatham, so it doesn't run buses into Chatham, but the MPO does. So that'll broaden that. I also did want to mention, because somewhere over the past week and a half, I heard that the partners were not part of the original group that made the transit plan. And that's just not so. I spoke to John Roberts before he went on break, and he had a list of everybody that was part of that plan, and it did include Chapel Hill and Carborough, included Hillsborough, it also included UNC, and the county. So everybody was at the table. So the idea that wouldn't happen again is sort of like out of left field, because we want everyone to be involved. We also talked yesterday, and let me just tell you, the meeting happened about 4:15. Some people were in the room. Most people called in because we had to do what we legally needed to do to get that 15 days in. It was a kind of a rush. So we didn't have everybody present, so we couldn't look at everybody, but we all talked about making sure that the public is involved every step of the way. And both Durham and Orange County expressed that. So we know that that's going to happen. And I will save my postmortem until after we hear from others. So Commissioner Markopoulos, do you want to go first?
Sure. So just want to run down the 5 major hurdles that sort of made this decision happen on its own in a way. So we had, we know about Duke University. I'll just summarize a little bit of that. In 2017, Tom and Trask sent a letter to Go Triangle saying Duke was on board with a transit plan, looking forward to a regional cooperative effort. The line on Irwin Road was in a good spot, really appreciated the elevated rail that was going to make traffic flow easier, and liked the location of the station. At the very last minute, all of a sudden, Duke's letter says they never supported this plan, never liked the Irwin Road track location, and so forth. So difficult to work with a disingenuous partner like that. The North Carolina Railroad, they would say, we want you to do X, and when we would bring them X, they would say, we want Y also, and maybe twice as much as X. They asked for, the amount of money that was going to be paid to them to be in the right-of-way, and their right-of-way was nationally figured out at $4 million. Which that type of right-of-way around the country in different projects costs about $4 million. They wanted $30 million. So there was another partner that was clearly stonewalling. And, you know, we can't forget that the state legislature in the very, you know, sort of beginning of this last phase of the project did everything they could to kneecap the project. They brought the money down from the 25% to 10%, and then said only 500,000, right? It was ludicrous, and then created an arbitrary deadline. So at the same time, the rising costs due to the you know, the voluntary offer by Go Triangle to do that work on Irwin Road, and the downtown issues that were raised later in the project, the FTA contingency requirements, and this was Durham's issue really to deal with, because we had passed a resolution saying we weren't going to put in any more than $149.5 million. It was in the original cost share, and that rising cost just really got too high, and partly it was because of a sort of an unexpected final hurdle was the government shutdown. So the FTA came down from Washington in December, I believe, November or December, to sit down with the engineer, sit down with Go Triangle, and just identify areas that might cause cost overruns in the future. They looked at, you know, the different plans for where the rail would go and all that. They also considered the intransigence of Duke and the railroad, and added in higher contingency for that, and went back up to DC with the plan to send us back their final number in January. And then the government shutdown occurred. 6 weeks of government shutdown essentially cost the project 2 months of planning, which made it nearly impossible to meet that April 30th deadline at that point. So that's, you know, one or two of those problems might have been surmountable, but it was a cascade of fairly arbitrary circumstances that led us to this point. And I just want to say that we talked about a new plan. Well, we've got a lot to think about in terms of filling the void that this project is leaving us. So in terms of jobs and economic development, we know that developers prefer light rail over BRT for its fixed guideway permanence. And we know the station development and project construction would have provided job opportunities. For example, just think about this. Locally, we have Summit Engineering in Hillsborough. When this project would have begun construction, it would have created 70 jobs at one local business here in Hillsborough, and that's not going to happen. Issues of environment and health, there would have been reduced emissions per person, creating low emission zones around the stations en route, more transit-oriented, walkable, bikeable communities, fostering healthier lifestyles, development more contained in the urban areas, thus reducing sprawl and preserving farmland and natural areas. In the issue of affordable housing and social equity, the pretty sizable revenue we would have gained from the development at the station areas would have provided very valuable money to be used for affordable housing. Station areas around the country, they don't build as much parking for units, residential units that are there, because people are right next to the station and they often forego automobiles. Rents are about $150 less per unit because of that. And inexpensive, dependable transportation costs are a large part of providing affordable living opportunities. So, as we move forward, we face a myriad of challenges as we prepare to create a new regional transit plan. We will need to address all the issues I've mentioned as we consider what comes next. We know that the most effective rapid transit that can be relied upon to provide fixed duration trips must be located outside the general road traffic. So can we design bus rapid transit solutions that minimize BRT creep, the common phenomenon that occurs in the best of BRT routes as compromises are made to vehicle traffic patterns in urban environments? The word rapid seems to tap into the brain's pleasure centers, but true fully fixed route BRTs are rare. UNC Hospital area is the busiest transit node on the route, and the FTA considered it essential to the DOLRT system. During rush hour periods, 86 buses pass through that zone. Duke Hospital experiences almost the same level of bus traffic. So how are we going to fit new modes of transit into that already very congested and busy area? It's a challenge. Connecting the three universities, UNC, Duke, and NC Central, was a key accomplishment of the route design, something to keep in mind. And we must continue our commitment to a regional transit plan while continuing to strengthen our local in-county systems. There has been ongoing productive collaboration amongst all the Orange County jurisdictions and partners, and it is essential that we build upon that work. While losing the light rail is a devastating blow to our region, we must turn the page and get to work on a new plan that addresses the interconnected issues of mobility for all our residents, affordability and equity, job creation, revenue generation, and climate change.
Thank you. Commissioner Green?
Sure, thank you. I'll pick up on some of what Commissioner Markopoulos was talking about by just talking about, from my perspective, the things that have been lost by the loss of this plan. The DOLRT was part of a larger vision for the entire region, and as we all know, we're experiencing high growth. It was a vision not for 5 years, but for 50 years. One thing it was intended to do was to actually shape development and expand mobility for folks. As we all know, it was supposed to connect 3 of the 10 largest employers in the state, UNC, UNC Healthcare, and Duke University and Hospitals. On that line, there were 3 24-hour-a-day employers, being the 2 hospitals and the VA hospital. We know a lot of workers could have benefited from transit to those jobs. Downtown Durham has added over 10,000 jobs in the past decade and is increasingly an employment destination for people who live in Orange County, and vice versa. Many university employees and others who work in Chapel Hill live in Durham, or perhaps one spouse works in each community. The light rail would have greatly expanded realistic job opportunities because a rail can go a lot faster, and as Commissioner Markopoulos just indicated, seamlessly to its destinations on time. And that by definition makes the 45-minute commute to work a larger area for a lot more people, so it greatly expands job opportunities. As to affordable housing, I'll concede that Durham was ahead of us on that, and they had been really working hard on getting affordable housing strategies at their stations. And for example, DHIC won a tax credit project last year at one of the stations. But there were still ways to do more and for Chapel Hill to participate in that. We can look to Denver and the way Enterprise Community Partners helped them with transit-oriented equitable funds, which tapped into the local nonprofit providers and to using some tax dollars to reinvest. There were ways to do that. And there were economic benefits for all of Orange County. There was potential for commercial development and tax revenue at the Gateway Station. And again, we should have been thinking not 5 years, but 25 to 50 years out. UNC has property that's not taxable on Fordham Boulevard there, but that may not always be the case. We don't know what redevelopment could have looked like there. Think about Hamilton Road, which may or may not have happened immediately, but when it did, it was already going to happen at a neighborhood that Chapel Hill had identified as transit-oriented. In fact, that's why East 54 exists, is because there was supposed to be a transit stop right behind it. There's still a lot of redevelopment potential there. The credit union could be redeveloped as a credit union on the first floor and affordable housing above it. In fact, that's been thought of by them. The school was actually contemplating selling the Glenwood property for redevelopment someday. There's a strip mall there that could be redeveloped. There is the Glen Lennox project, which could benefit from the light rail. All of those things are going to be lost. And for myself, as someone who got a graduate degree at UNC, I am sorry for all of the classes that folks from NC State and Duke and UNC will not be able to take at the other institutions by hopping on the train and quickly getting to their classes. There would be great learning opportunities for them. Academic environments thrive on cross-pollination of ideas. It's just not that easy to get in your car from Alston Avenue and go to UNC to take a course. So again, this is supposed to be a part of a larger system of connecting the region. As Commissioner Markopoulos said, that need still exists. without filling that need, we may be headed for a future in which the major population centers of Orange County are cut off in a way from the rest of the triangle, which we're not participating in those back and forth benefits, nor are we sharing the responsibilities that we have as being part of a fast-growing, thriving region. So wherever we go from here, I know there'll be a lot of talk about it, but for right now, I'm just sad.
Thank you. Additional comments? Commissioner Bedford.
I just wanted to say that I think the PowerPoint tonight lays out a very good timeline and a plan, and echoing what Mark said during the petition time is, as a new commissioner, it would be very helpful for me, and I imagine the public, to have not necessarily a work session where no one's allowed to talk, but a information session on how all of this and the MPOs and the votes and the decision-making, how it was all set up, created, works, and then it has that, so we all have that base foundation, especially, and then we can also contemplate whether that should change or not, or how if it can change. And, you know I can pull up the law, the General Assembly law that authorized the tax, but just to know, I have seen a lot of confusion within the public, and so it even confused me about, well, what are we allowed to spend that tax on, and what is it dedicated to? So that would be really helpful, and as we do the planning and we start budgeting, I like what Mark Dorson said about, reassuring everyone that the budget is there for the current bus transportation. And I only caught, Penny, 2 sentences of what you said on the radio in a rebroadcast, but the point that you made about, this is going to take many months, and the second point that it's not I don't think from the law, necessarily just Durham, Orange, and Wake, but also how do we look at Chatham? How do we look at 30% of the people coming into UNC are coming from the west, as well as, then within the county? And so I don't even know that does the tax have to go to Go Triangle? Are there other ways to manage that tax? I have no idea, and it would be very helpful to know as we look at those basic questions of who do we want to serve, and how do we serve that? How do we do the regional planning? Where do they want to go, and what's the frequency, and what can we afford? So I'm eager to try to switch this to another opportunity, knowing that every time delay we have increases in construction costs, and as you said, more cars on the road and more people, and the need grows higher. Thank you.
I've been involved with this program for about 9 years now, and yes, Duke caused a problem when they decided not to move forward. The railroads caused a problem when they brought their issues, and to what Mark spoke of, more issues and then more issues on top of more issues, but that's a railroad. That's not exclusive to this. We dealt with a railroad right over here the other side of Hillsborough, and we were effectively told those railroad crossings would be closed and that we didn't have any say about it. It was going to happen. So I don't think that's anything new about dealing with the railroad. What is the problem is that we talked about institutions and companies and problems, but there's a lot of blame to go around on this thing. There's plenty of blame to go around. And let's not forget, there's 2 other entities that share part of that blame. One of them is Go Triangle, and one of them is the boards of commissioners with Orange County and Durham County over the last 8 years plus. Go Triangle repeatedly came to us, provided a rosy scenario, a pretty picture, everything's fine, even to the last time John Talmadge stood at that podium and failed in his projections and his talk, to mention that Go Triangle was going to run out of money in August. Never mentioned. That was a key thing. And we're the board that is supposed to know that. And we and former boards that I've sat on have failed to push back hard enough on, in misinformation, my opinion, that was presented to us in a rosy scenario. We didn't push back hard enough. We didn't ask enough questions. We didn't call them on the carpet when they brought to us information on Tuesday afternoon to be voted on Tuesday night. So there's plenty of blame to go around. So let's don't just say that this is Duke's problem, that this is Duke's doing, that this is the railroad's doing, that this is this person or that person or some other person. This thing failed of its own weight. It didn't fail for one thing. It didn't fail for another thing. It failed for a combination of things, and it failed of its own weight. It continued to reduce services in the presentations that I've heard since 2010. It went from a 3-car train to just recently the potential of going to a 1-car unit. That's nothing but a large bus. It went from a 2-lane track to a 1-lane track in places. That caused a reduction in service time. The project continued to get more expensive. It continued to get less service. If you want to talk about developers liking the rail over bus or BRT or bus services or whatever, I'm less concerned about what the developers like and what the developers need than I am concerned over what the people in Orange County that do not have transportation options. We had a Go Triangle person stand right at a podium and say it was not designed for people without options. It was designed to get people out of their cars that had the option of taking a car or taking the light rail. My concern is the concern of the folks that don't have a car. We heard a lady just a few minutes ago say she had an issue with us, and I'm going to find out what that issue is. She don't have a car. She needs transportation options, and if this rail system is going to eat up all the money, then she's not going to get that. The thing for me here is I understand, and Chair Rich, you're absolutely correct. Chatham is not a part of it right now, but Chatham ought to be. We need to figure out how to make Chatham part of it, because when Chatham Park comes online, we're going to Orange and Chatham are going to have some way to address that, because that's 60,000 houses. That's going to cause a huge problem on 15501 South. We already have a huge problem on 54. We've got a huge problem on 15501. And we're going to have to figure out how to address this, and we're going to have to figure out how to address it with buses, and we're going to have to figure out fairly quickly how to make this work, regardless of our feelings, either my feelings against LRT or someone else's feelings for it. We're going to get past that. You know, I'm going to work as hard as I can to make things work going forward. And I'm not going to, this will be the last time you hear me making comments on this LRT program. The challenge for me is to figure out some way that we can address the program going forward with services, and to do it in such a way that Orange County has control over what we need, to have control and have a say over what services we provide, and not have Go Triangle come to us and present, this is what you're going to get. And that's what has happened for 8 years. I've sat here for 8 years and had Go Triangle stand at that podium and tell us, this is what you're going to get. And we had to take it because of the agreement. We had no way to get at it. I've had people ask me, why don't you just walk away? There was no walking away. There was absolutely no way for Orange County to walk away from this thing. So we need to have changes made in these agreements. There does not need to be any further weighted voting, because a weighted vote that was taken eliminated any possibility of Orange County having any say in the matter. And that happened. And that happened after a vote that did not suit some of our other so-called partners. So if we're talking about disingenuous partners, we have to talk about all the disingenuous partners. So alone and in conjunction with our neighboring counties, we got to figure out something. And I'm going to end up with this. The changes have to include changes not only to the service that we're getting, it has to include changes to the governance and the decision-making process. And if we have to have a strained conversation with Go Triangle and Durham over this, then I'm willing for the conversation to occur. I mean, I've been dealing with this for 8 years, and looks like unless I die, I'll be dealing with it for 3 more.
Commissioner
Dorson?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on some of the things that Commissioner McKee said, and I think one of the things that's really critical, I mean, not just Commissioner McKee, that everyone said, you know, that going forward, what we have to keep in mind is that we're developing a regional system, right? So the issues that we heard about tonight about a person who lives in the county who doesn't have a car, those are issues that have to be dealt with, but that's not the same issue as developing a regional system that includes, whether it includes Chatham or Durham or Wake. So, you know, I think we have to really be clear that that it's not a one-size-fits-all, that there's these multiple aspects of it that have to be considered. But those regional ones are the most critical ones. I take a little bit of issue with blaming the counties. You know, this board stood very firm in saying we were going to spend this much money and not anymore. So I think to say that and we did that to the consternation of our partners. But I think that was a responsible position that we took on behalf of the residents, and I think we should be proud of that. And I also think that we should recognize that our colleagues in Durham stepped up repeatedly. I mean, they you know, when the state made these holes that Mark pointed out, they were there and they said, we understand Orange County's not going to give any more money, so we're going to do it. And our colleagues in Durham City came forward also, which our colleagues, you know, in our local municipalities did not. And so I just think that that there have been problems in the process, no question, but you know, I wouldn't give too much of a pass to the opposition that we had. I mean, you know, representations were made by Duke about their participation in this project that this board and the other partners reasonably relied on, to our detriment. And these belated last-minute things that they did, you know, that was the precipitating cause. You know, I think, candidly, I think if Duke University had come along and said we're in, I think other pieces would have fallen in line. I think the railroad would have come in line. I think the private fundraising would have come along as well. So, but a regional system, which is what we desperately need to address all the issues that Mark and Sally referred to, is not going to be one that serves every single person in the county and every single transportation need that every person in the county has. And that's just the reality of it. And we have to, you know, we have to go into this next phase of that understanding, you know, it's sort of like we did with affordable housing. You know, we have this issue all across the county, but we identified what are the priorities? How are we going to prioritize the resources that we have? How are we going to meet the most critical needs? And we're going to have to do the same thing going forward on this. And it is going to require, you know, some kind of effective regional collaboration. And, you know, I hope that the bad taste that a lot of us have in our mouths does not put us behind the starting line going forward.
Commissioner Markopoulos.
So during the spring of 2017, when we were considering whether to join the cost share agreement, it was very problematic, the communication that we were getting from Go Triangle. And, you know, I had the privilege later on to be the representative to Go Triangle, and I saw a change when John Talmadge was appointed the head of the project. And myself and the Durham representative spent a lot of time at board meetings talking about the failure of communication. And I felt like it got better. And, you know, it's a huge project. You know, nobody's going to bat 1,000 in that kind of situation. But I just wanted to say that. And also just to clear up a couple of misconceptions, just so they don't live on. We've heard so many different erroneous assertions during this process. So we asked Go Triangle, can you cut the cost? Can you figure out ways to bring the price down? And they said, you know, we won't need 3 cars until 2040 or whatever. So let's go to 2 cars. Let's start with 2 cars and then see what we can add when we need them. They never, I mean, no, there was no serious talk of going to 1 car. So they did what we wanted. They reduced the cost there. They, the 2-lane issue, that was over the creek, New Hope Creek, right, down at the bottom of 15501. They had both tracks going across, and they thought, well, the bridge is kind of expensive. Let's just make that bridge 1 lane. It wasn't a long stretch, as some folks tried to insinuate, that it was all along 15501 going from 2 tracks to 1. And the reason that they were able to save money on that is because they figured out that they could easily time the trains to not be there at the same time. So they responded to our request to look for ways to save money, and I think they deserve credit for coming up with ways that did not diminish service time, any problems like that. The weighted vote, I sent emails, I don't know if you read those yet or not, but a description of what was involved in the vote and the fact that it didn't impede any of those purchase of buses or the BRT funding. And in fact, the bylaws of the DCHC MPO require the weighted vote based on population. Every vote they take has a weight to it, but they don't always do the math, right? Behind every vote they take, there is that population weight. Usually it's consensus, so they just don't worry about it. But in this particular, they considered it an important enough vote that they, wanted to show the weight, or I'm not exactly sure, remember how the weighted part came out. But all that to say, it's in the bylaws. There's nothing unusual about that vote or other MPO's votes. So,
Commissioner Price?
I'm going to try to be brief here. I'm not going to get into blaming or bashing anyone. I think it's important right now that we, of course, we have to look at what did happen, the negative and the positive. But going forward, I do agree with regional, that we have to look regional with even Chatham. Wake County has been, is actually interested in seeing how we can link with Durham, as well as how they can link with Durham as well as Orange. And we have Alamance to the west. So I see the importance of looking regional. I also see the importance of, though we won't reach every single person, but to see where we can be serve our community even better with some of the funds that we will now be able to use to go further into our county and to focus a little bit more into Orange County. And one of the issues that I had with the Go Triangle plan, with the light rail plan, was even in the advertising, and some of the folks from Go Triangle agreed with me on this, is that a lot of the focus was on going to Durham. Now people can go to downtown Durham. They can go to South Point. Well, what about Franklin Street? What about some of the businesses along, Rosemary and Franklin Street, Chapel Hill? So I think we can, I would hope that we can try to put a little more focus on Orange County as we go forward with this plan, and also to address some of the issues that people have been saying to us over the past several years about where they need to come and go and try to get to government services and whatnot within Orange County, or that may take them, for example, to Duke Hospital, if they happen to live in Hillsborough, and trying to get to Duke. So I know it's going to be a little difficult for some folks getting past this point, but I think we can rise above this.
Commissioner McKee?
Yeah, I agree with the comments that's been made about regional service, because if we don't address regional service, we are doing ourselves and everyone else a disfavor. But there'll be enough funding going forward, I am convinced, to do both regional service in some form, and to be quite honest, folks, we have no idea what the form of transportation is going to be in 2040. So we need to look forward to figuring out how we're going to get there. But if we leave these folks that do not have transportation options behind, like this light rail funding would have left them behind, and I don't care if you agree with me or don't agree with me, that's irrelevant. But it did not focus, as it should have, on people that needed the service. When it takes longer to go from Fairview. It takes you 5 minutes to get from Fairview downtown and 2 hours to get back home. That is not transportation. That is an imposition on people that have no other options. And it's to the weighted vote and to other things in that agreement that I have issues with and that I've had issues with since 2010 when I came on this board. If we allow ourselves to get back in a situation where we have that sort of weighted, where if the vote is taken and it doesn't suit certain individuals or certain entities, and they then go back and vote again with a weighted vote, that happened.
No, it didn't.
But we'll pull the records.
I was there.
We'll pull the records. But
Okay.
we cannot allow ourselves to get back in a situation where Orange County does not control our own destiny. And we can't sit here and say, well, we've got to do this, that, or the other in order to get along with our neighbors or to work with Durham over Orange County interests. We are Orange County commissioners. We look after Orange County first in cooperation with surrounding counties to make sure that it is a cooperative thing. But we're responsible to the folks that put us in these seats and the folks that pay the money that's going to be spent on whatever new incarnation comes along. So I will never agree to going back into some agreement that allows anything other than Orange County Board to control the direction of where we're going to go on transportation. We need to make sure we control our own destiny.
Commissioner Green?
Well, just to be clear, even though in my previous statements I emphasized the loss of the regional system, I certainly do not want to leave the rural residents of Orange County behind. We were already talking about on-demand service. We were already talking about how to use the money that was available in the transit plan, and I certainly support that interest going forward. They're both important, it's just they're different.
Okay, so a few things. I'm not going to repeat what everybody said. I'm just going to keep in mind that we have 25,000 people that work on the UNC campus every day, and that's why the FTA insisted that UNC campus be stopped. That was never played with. That had to happen. We still have to move 25,000 people around to get to that UNC campus every day. So I think that as we're talking about a regional plan, we do have to agree with our partners. Now Durham is going to continue with their commuter rail, and that will connect Durham and Wake. The rail up in Hillsborough will continue, and hopefully we'll have some folks that'll be able to use that Amtrak station that'll move back and forth. But we have a problem. We need to move people around. If we keep growing, we've got to really think about how we're going to do that. Glen Lennox is a perfect example of an office building coming out of the ground now that was totally relying on light rail. You could talk to Clay Grubb, he will tell you he is building that office building because that's where light rail was going to be. We don't know what that's going to look like now. We don't know, I haven't talked to Clay in a while, but we don't know what that means for him. He's still going to build the office building, but we don't know what it means. I can tell you, I have 2 sons. The younger generation does not want to be in the car. My kids couldn't wait until they got their driver's license when they were 14 and a half. Now they're in their 20s, and they couldn't care less about getting in a car. They would take any other form of transportation possible. Just about the MPO vote, every vote at the MPO, whether it be our MPO or anyone else's MPO, is a weighted vote. It goes by how many people, what the population is of that person that is voting for that. So Durham has more votes. They have more votes on every single vote. It's just that most of the time we have agreement on what we're voting on. So you don't have to call it out. But if I vote, or Commissioner Price, for example, is on the MPO now, if she votes, she might have 6 votes. She's not getting 1 vote. But her counterpart in Durham might have 12 votes. That 1 vote is a 12 vote. So every single vote at the MPO is a weighted vote. There was not 2 votes. It didn't happen like that. There was 1 vote. There were conversations that are surrounded before the vote happened, just like we vote on things, and that's how the vote came out. I was there. I know what happened. I have some concerns about our economic development challenge. We have an economic development challenge in Orange County already. We are now going to have more of a challenge because we know that new businesses aren't going to come here. They're not going to grow here. They're going to move where transportation is. I'm really concerned that we lost out on the ability to build the Gateway Station up, which would have given us tax dollars not only for affordable housing, but for our schools. You know, the bottom line of school right now costs $35 million to build, and that's an elementary school. If we had to keep, you know, building schools because we're going to keep having folks come in, we need tax base to do that, or we're going to find ourselves in big trouble. And it could be, we're going to come up with that report soon. I think we're probably going to have a report in maybe 2 months or so on the SAFO. You'll see, there are some challenges there. And, you know, we're going to have to make some hard decisions on that. I am also going to keep my mind on that this has to be a regional transportation system. I also know that we will have, because of the amount of money, we will have dollars that'll come back into projects that we know that we want to work on. We were talking a little bit about on Monday, like what could we bring back quickly to start spending some of those dollars. And, you know, we're going to obviously talk about it, but the bus where people sit and wait for buses was one of those things that we were thinking that would be a nice idea to like start moving forward on that. Commissioner Bedford is right. This project to rebuild this transportation plan is probably going to be between 12 and 18 months. So the winding down is going to take a couple of months. If not 6 months, so we're going to have to, you know, pay all the folks that were hired to do jobs, and then we're going to lay all those folks off. So all these people that were working with us are going to lose their jobs, and that's just a shame. Not only is it sad, it just takes us out of the playing field for trying to bring new folks here and bring new businesses here. So my concern is economic development. My concern is that we don't have, we're going to be really strapped for money for schools, and the loss of jobs here. We could have been a player, and now it seems as though we're going to have to go back to the drawing board to become a player. So that's my concerns. If anyone has any more comments, we could take them before we take this vote. The recommendation is to discontinue the Durham Orange Light Rail Transit Project and authorize staff to begin developing a process to amend the Orange County Transit Plan.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Markopoulos and Price, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good discussion. We have no reports. Now, the consent agenda looks a little wacky now. So we have, the minutes are in, B, motor vehicles are in, property tax refunds are in. D and E have already been voted on, as well as F. And then G through J remains. So if
I
everyone
move the
could.
remaining items on the consent agenda.
Awesome. We have
Second.
Dorson and Bedford, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Okay. Thank you, everyone. County Manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and County Commissioners. I just want to give you 2 reminders. There's 2 work sessions coming up on Thursday, April 4th, and the agenda for that will be the second half of the County Commissions Board and Commissions. And then there'll be a presentation of Health and Human Services initiatives and county impacts. That'll be given by Nancy Cost and Quintana Stewart and Erica from Child Support. And I feel bad, her name just left me.
Bryant, Erica Bryant.
Erica Bryant, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
They'll be giving that, and they'll be also talking about Medicaid transformation in their report. And then also it'll be a board discussion on your potential framework for intergovernmental collaboration with municipal partners. And then the following Tuesday will be as we said earlier, the CIP, and that will be totally on the CIP, the first year item by item, and then we'll go into the future years. That concludes my report.
Thank you. County's Attorney report?
No report.
This This is your time to shine, woman.
No, John didn't give me anything to say.
We do not have any appointments. I just wanted to bring out in the information items, I requested some information on the flex zone because the group that was in front of
Yes,
us
that was
had
very
wanted that. So if everybody read that, if you had any questions, that would be great to just direct to the Carrboro planning staff. And we do not have any closed session, so we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, by McKee,
Second.
second Bedford, all those in favor?
All right.
So you went to Southern, huh? You got